Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Giant Mess. I'm your host, Neal Lynch, and I am a giant mess. I'm a Giants and Mets fan who loves movies, comedy, and TV, and a whole lot more. On this week's episode, we're going to talk about the latest episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and South Park. We'll also discuss the first half of the last season of The Sopranos. I'll give you my review of Ma, the horror movie starring Octavia Spencer, and how it relates to the new Joker movie, because we can't go a single episode without talking about Joker. I'll give you my thoughts on the Devils and their slow start to the season. The Mets fired Mickey Callaway. Who will be the next manager? What kind of grades are we handing out for the players in 2019? What were some of the top moments from the 2019 season? And what kind of moves in the offseason can we expect for the 2020 season? The Giants. We'll recap their Week 5 loss against the Vikings and what to expect against the Patriots in Week 6. Don't get your hopes up. And with that, let's get started. Let's talk about South Park. We're now in season 23. It's episode 2. This one's called Banned in China. And this is a baby. I don't know, top 5 most controversial episodes of all time, top 10 most controversial episodes of all time. I mean, it's not controversy. They're just telling it how it is. They're telling you the truth, the reality of the situation, that the entertainment industry is way far too dependent on China for anything to make money. And ironically, I think this episode of South Park ties in very neatly with the second episode of Always Sunny, which I'll get to a little bit later on. But if you saw the episode, you know what happened. Randy Marsh, head of Tegridy Farms, which I know I was a little down on Tegridy Farms, that storyline last week, and I think I needed to warm up to it again. You know, I think it was like, oh, we're still doing the Tegridy Farms thing. I kind of wrote it off as like a one season type thing, but the fact that they're continuing it and they're taking it to the next level, I now applaud it. I now understand, what the appeal is there. So Randy's like, hey, I'm not making money. And now I have an idea. Why don't I take this to China and I'll try and sell Tegridy Farms in China, billions of Chinese people. You know, if you just get like 1% of that, you're raking in dough. It's an allegory. And we see that as, we progress through the episode. You see all the Marvel characters, all the Disney characters, boarding a plane to China to sell their future projects, because I guess that's the only way we in the media and entertainment industries can operate anymore, is if we have funding from China. Yeah, you go where the money is. I get that. And Stan, and I think I was with Stan Marsh, Randy's son, when he was saying, like, I just want to get off this farm. And I think that was me last episode. I wanted to get off Tegridy Farms. I thought maybe that it had run its course. And for some reason, I thought the show had jumped the shark, just because I think the Tegridy Farms storyline might have, passed its expiration date. I'm wrong. I'm back in on Tegridy Farms. And it's because of this episode, and it's because of the balls on Matt Stone and Trey Parker. Like, the fact that they can take it to China like this, knowing that like Comedy Central is part of Viacom, and Viacom has probably got some kind of plan that involves China. So, my first big laugh came from Stan Marsh when his band is supposed to perform at Autumn Fest. And of course, Randy says he can't go because he's going to China, because he thinks he's got a big stake in China. And we see Stan's band on stage at Autumn Fest, and we're expecting, it's like a bunch of 8-year-olds. So you're expecting something similar to like the boy band idea that they pulled off a couple of seasons back. And his band's name is Crimson Dawn, and he starts performing, and it's hardcore death metal. That was the first big laugh from me. Of course, he's approached. The band is approached by some kind of producer who wants to do a biopic on them, which I think is their way of maybe talking about the more recent music biopics that came out, the Bohemian Rhapsody about Queen and Freddie Mercury, and then you had Rocket Man about Elton John. So I think this was their sort of response to that, is like, music biopics are in now. The problem is, and this is how it ties into Randy's storyline, is the producer wants to make money, and he knows in order to make money, you need funding from China. And the Chinese government's going to get involved because they have all this, a very long, lengthy laundry list of rules and stipulations and policies that are a bit wacky. I think time travel was on there. Like, time travel movies aren't, for a little bit, they weren't allowed in the Chinese market or banned from Chinese theaters. I might be wrong on that. But, you know, Hollywood and the major studios and a lot of production companies have had to kowtow. Don't know if that's the right word. Bow down to China and the Chinese government in order to get their projects funded, but also to have the projects aired or screened in the Chinese market. I just like that South Park is still willing to go there. You know, I think anyone who's thought South Park has kind of lost its edge, or maybe it's not as cutting edge, or I'm going to throw the word edge out there a third time. Why not? This episode kind of like put them back on the map, I guess you could say. They didn't really go anywhere, in my opinion, but the fact that they're willing to tackle this and and for Comedy Central to air this, you know, that's a big step. I personally like anytime, you know, last week I said that Towley is one of my favorite characters in South Park history. It's great to see him back in the mix. And I wasn't sure. I thought that the Tegridy Farms open was going to be like, that's it for episode 1. And then they brought it back for episode 2. And I had to laugh every time the Towley part comes on. I'm dumb. I'm very easy to please. But another character who doesn't appear in every episode, but is recurring to a certain extent, is their version of Mickey Mouse. Holy shit. This character, the Mickey Mouse character that they've created, gets a laugh out of me every time. That and Tally. Every time they're on screen, I get a laugh. I mean, when they have Mickey Mouse, he talks in the Mickey Mouse high-pitched voice, but he's talking rough. He's talking dirty. He's talking brass tacks. You know, the way he talks is like, he's no bones about it. No bullshitting around. But I love, it's just a little thing that they do, but they always throw in, after like a hard statement by this version of Mickey Mouse, their version of Mickey Mouse, the little giggle. The little giggle at the end gets me every time. Like, so Mickey Mouse comes in the room. It's a room full of Disney, Marvel characters and his whole crew. And essentially you come to find out that through this producer that's scouting or recruiting Stan's band to do the biopic, that China, and I guess this is a real thing, China has like banned Winnie the Pooh because people were using Winnie the Pooh and saying that it looked like the Chinese president. I mean, come on. What are we doing here? You know? I guess if you want to rule with an iron fist, and you can't rule with an iron fist when people are comparing you to a fictional fat bear that loves honey, then has like a high voice and might not have balls. So, I mean, you know, that's hard to do when you're in that environment. You got to keep the respect, and people are throwing around your face on Winnie the Pooh. So, yeah, okay. I can see that from that vantage point. But so he's in this room. I mean, their version of Mickey Mouse is in the room talking to all the characters, and he's calling people fat. He's calling characters fat and whatnot. And when he says, "Oh, what's South Park doing on that?" Oh, just, you know, that's not a good line. I could have picked a better line. There are lines in there that I should have picked out. He calls someone fat, but he immediately follows it with the giggle, and it gets me every time. And, you know, and maybe this is Matt and Trey's way of saying to Comedy Central, like, we're not backing down, and we're pushing our chips in the middle of the table. We're not folding. We believe in our product, and we don't need China to survive or exist. And Spoiler alert, they got that. They got their wish because apparently China has completely wiped South Park from the internet in China, which I didn't. That blows my mind a little bit because you living here, I think you take certain things for granted. I've taken a lot of things for granted. I think that's pretty obvious. But the fact that you can just wipe something from the internet. I mean, Beyonce tried to do that with her picture where she was all hulked out, and she was looking super jacked, which why would you want that wiped from the internet? I would love a picture of me jacked out of my skull on the internet. That'd be great. Good for biz. Beyonce wanted it deleted from the internet. And apparently you can do that in China. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. But there were a couple quotes I felt like that really hit home with me. The one from the producer, he was saying, they were talking about how I think Kenny was inspired by something on YouTube that involved the Dalai Lama, and the producer's like, you can't say Dalai Lama. The Chinese are against the Dalai Lama. You gotta nix that. And they were talking about Winnie the Pooh, and he's like, Winnie the Pooh doesn't jive with the Chinese either. And he says, you gotta lower your ideals of freedom to suck at the warm teat of China. That's what's so interesting about Hollywood and the entertainment industry is that, and I don't mean to single anyone out, but it just comes top of mind. Chris Evans, Captain America. Okay. He's very vocal, outspoken on Twitter and what he puts out there on social media. And he's critical of the government. And I think in a lot of ways, he's trying to be a real life Captain America and fight for justice and all that. But then you're doing things that are influenced by China and the Chinese government. There's some shit that goes on over in China. No, I'm not claiming to know everything there is to know about China. I know next to nothing except from what I'm fed. So maybe this is propaganda by South Park because I haven't done any research or looked into it at all. I'm going strictly by what I've seen and read online and the limited amount of exposure and reports that I've gotten about China. So it's not, it's got its flaws. I mean, America's got its flaws. China's got its flaws, right? So to be tied to an entity like that has still some shady stuff going on in terms of, they had mentioned forced labor, lack of freedom of speech, the Chinese government coming down on you if you go against them in any way or against what they believe in and whatnot. So, I'm this show and it's one viewer, listener / whatever, this might be the last episode. The Chinese government might shut me down, you guys. No, they won't. They don't even know I exist. So for South Park to take that on and really address the entertainment industry and saying like, you are giving up. You claim to fight for these certain ideals and whatnot, but yet you are working tangentially, I guess, working for or with the Chinese government in China. And so, it's a very tenuous relationship. When Randy offs Winnie the Pooh. And they have the shot, that the classic shot of like anytime someone chokes out someone with a piano wire from behind, and they have that sideways shot of the person laying on the ground, the person who's doing the murdering, the killing off, the sideways shot of like looking at the person's face and seeing how the stone cold expression on that killer's face. They did that with Randy and it just resonated. It's like, that's something that is so dark, twisted humor that I don't know that most people get. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do. I appreciated that. The fact that they were able to get that shot on Randy was just priceless. Of course, there's a brief moment where they go back. Stan realizes that his script for this movie, this biopic on his hardcore death metal band is probably not going to get made because there's so much censorship going on from the Chinese government. saying you can't say this, you can't say that, you can't show this, can't show that. And so he gets fed up, and he realizes that he needs to go back to this boy band, but that only lasts for like a half second. But the moral of the story here is Randy sold out and Stan won't. Randy and the commercial for Tegridy just really sticks it to China and the Chinese government. I mean, as much as you can. I don't think they're going to tumble and crumble and fall apart because of this fake commercial that Randy put together. But, they also gave Randy like this little, like, kind of down home, wholesome, country-ish, rural accent this past couple seasons, now that he's with Tegridy Farms, that it's just like, it's one of those things where I compare it to when Eric says school or skoo, or, just the little things that every time it's said, I giggle. I have to. But you see, Randy paid for his success in blood. I mean, he's sitting, that's the last thing shot. The last scene from the episode is Randy's sitting at the kitchen table trying to buy his family, and he's covered in honey and blood. And Stan's like, "Why are you covered in honey and blood? Did you kill Winnie the Pooh?" He's like, "You damn right I did." It's just like, that's kind of and it's really Matt and Trey just saying, like, this is the position we're in. We can either go with the companies that have done this and have seen tremendous success. They've had to sacrifice some creative freedoms to get this access to this huge market because of this regime, this government that is so highly restrictive and quote unquote oppressive. I don't know. I don't have first-hand experience. I haven't been to China. Like, if you want me to fly to China, live there for a year, come back and do this episode, my Venmo is open. No promises on me coming back. I'm not railing on China here, but I mean, when there's smoke, there's fire, I guess, is what you could say. But I love I use the word dichotomy at least once in every episode. I'm going to use it again here. The dichotomy between Randy and Stan. The fact that Randy is willing to go that route and sell out. And I almost would say that's consistent with a lot of people in that age range. Like, I'm approaching that age range where it's like, you just kind of have to, part of you has to just give up on your ideals in order to achieve some sort of financial success to keep your family afloat. Does that make sense? I mean, I can point to numerous examples in my family that I know of and other families where it's like, really, we're going to do this makeup shit now? We're going to sell makeup to our friends. We're going to sell toothpaste to our friends. My parents, I've been open about this, were involved in a multi-level marketing scheme, and I don't know if that really paid off for us. I guess my mom still receives a check every now and then because it's somehow still going on. But, it's got to be a better way. I don't want to have to do that. Please don't make me do that. So, and that's how I related to Randy going to China. That's a lot of these friends and family I've seen, we would fucking laugh at that shit before, and now people are doing it full bore, and it's like, oh, don't give up, just cling, hold on, no matter what the cost. No, can't afford rent. Okay, can't afford the mortgage. Who wants some makeup? Who wants some toothpaste? Listen, I know, it comes off as me knocking the people who are doing that. Do your hustle. If there are people willing to buy it, then sell it. I'm not buying it. And I don't want to do it. I'm not a salesman. I don't sell. I can barely sell myself. I'm supposed to be selling myself right now that I'm unemployed, and I can't sell myself. Hire me, I do the job, and I do it right, and I do it hard. Whatever. But yeah, South Park willing to still push the envelope, and I appreciate that. And it's really, they deserve all the accolades and applause and recognition for what they've been doing for this long, and to be able to still survive and exist in what a lot of people are saying is a culture that where they maybe shouldn't exist. And I think this is a good segue to Always Sunny. This episode is called Thunder Gun 4 Maximum Cool, which, I mean, I don't know how you don't watch that, how you skip over that. But, this episode of Sunny addressed liberal PC bullshit. The gang is they're hired as a focus group to watch the new Thunder Gun movie called Thunder Gun 4 Maximum Cool, starring Dolph Lundgren. Yes. I feel like I should go on a Dolph Lundgren movie marathon and just like every movie he's ever made, just like chronological order. Let's see the aging process on Dolph and how he's just been. I mean, Universal Soldier is a movie that I've always wanted to watch. I just haven't sat down and done it. It's like, what are you doing, Neal? Just watch it. Pop it in. There's nothing to pop in. My brain. I'm almost 40. What do you expect? But so the gang is chosen as a focus group. Dennis, one of the first laughs I got of this episode was the moderator is a lady, and Dennis is like, well, I see you as kind of this and this, and she's like, sir, I'm not a performer, and he gets that little grin, and he's like, I can get a performance out of you. And you're just like, what is going on in that mind? Do I want to be inside that mind? No, thank you. But so in the second laugh I got, the big laugh was when Frank is talking about, so there's Thunder Gun 4 Maximum Cool. It's this movie with Dolph Lundgren. He plays this big time action hero, and the gang is wondering like, why isn't there like a gratuitous sex scene? Why don't we see his dong? That's what drew them to the series to begin with and kept them watching throughout the franchise. And the woman's like, well, we are rebooting the franchise, because they're like, what, you're rebooting the franchise? Like, yeah, didn't you see the last scene where he literally passes the torch to his son, and that's his child? And Frank's like, well, of course he's gonna have a kid. He's probably has thousands of kids with all the raw dog loads he's dropping all over the place. Then the moderator says, what raw dog loads? I think I had to pause the show. That's what, you don't hear that very often. I know that's such a low bar and such like lowbrow comedy, but it gets me. That's just what I like. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't be ashamed of it. Just be proud of who you are. But I know people get so like up in arms about that kind of comedy, and I don't know, it still hits a note with this guy. So you're still making a buck off one person, China. But the point is the gang, the moderator says, well, this isn't an R rating. We can't do gratuitous nudity and frontal nudity and dongs because we're doing a PG-13 rating, and this is where it gets a little hazy. The gang is accusing the studios of, this liberal PC bullshit. Like it used to be that conservatives wouldn't make movies like this because of whatever, but now it's like the liberal left is, they're now scared of putting this stuff out there. And so the lady, the moderator says, well, we went with PG-13 strictly because of piracy and people streaming illegally online. And they want to open it up to a new market, insinuating that younger people, 13 and younger, don't have the wherewithal or the means to illegally pirate and stream movies, which I don't know. Is that really the case? I don't think so. I would think that younger people, 13 and younger, know a hell of a lot more about illegal pirating and streaming than we give them credit for. Shout out to all my 13-year-olds out there. When I was 13, I didn't know anything. I almost ordered. There used to be like a box that you could buy that could bypass whatever restrictions were put on your cable box. So you could get like HBO, Cinemax, but also like Spice Channel and like things of that nature. And I almost ordered that. My uncle actually had it. And so then whenever I went over to my grandma's place, because my uncle lived at my grandma's place, it was like, I'm just going to go hang out in Uncle Brian's room for a little bit. And they're like, okay. Because it's usually a crowded house there. You know, it's like I'm the oldest in my generation. And like the other kids are younger. So they're like all gathered around the TV watching like kid stuff. But I'm 13, damn it. I'm basically an adult. Let me watch my kind of programming, which is not suitable for them because they're 6. I'm 13. So like, let me be me. And they didn't know I was going up to that room and watching all kinds of bad stuff, just nudie stuff. Kentucky Fried Movie was like a big movie that I like to watch. It just was so bizarre and wacky, and there were boobs, and that's all you needed as a 13-year-old. My point being, today's 13-year-olds are probably pirating and streaming just as much as like someone who's in their 30s or whatever. So I thought that was a little bit of a weird excuse, but that's the excuse that Hollywood's running with. So be it. So how does that tie into the South Park episode? Well, the message across the board is we're not able to pull in revenue, money, whatever, make money like we were on movies and TV shows here in the States alone. And you had to see this globalization take shape because the US can't make money off of what they're making anymore. You have to go global to get to pull in enough money to make a profit and to cover your margins or whatever. So that's why media and entertainment companies are going to China and leaning on the Chinese to get projects done. And the Chinese, they're not going to fund a project that they can't, make money off in their own market. So you can see why movies that should be R-rated are becoming PG-13, broader audience, more access, and then also bringing in China. Of course, the ironic part of this episode, Frank filmed the episode with like his phone. They leak it online thanks to D, heads up D. And fans find it online and they hate it. And they're like, the studio sees this backlash and they pull it from the schedule, and then they end up doing a reboot that is more appealing to hardcore fans. And when they started doing that montage where they're showing all the newspaper clippings from Variety or whatever, and they kind of show the guy in the tux or the suit, and I'm like, I immediately thought of James Bond, and I think it was like a commentary on James Bond. This No Time to Die movie has been, from what I've seen so far, a callback to the James Bond movies of yesteryear, the 90s, with what's his face. Oh boy, that is a real brain fart. The 80s with Roger Moore to simpler times. Even the poster that was recently released for the new James Bond movie, it just doesn't look right. And that's coming from someone who kind of wanted them to go back to the old school James Bond-ish movies. And I know I'm the worst, sorry. But you look at the poster and you're like, I mean, this is kind of looks like the old school posters, but like it feels like they didn't put a whole lot of effort into it. It's just like, pop. But then I read a headline today that said that they're, I don't know if it was, what's his face, Daniel Craig, who said this, but someone, I think it was Daniel Craig, said the script was, you couldn't put it down and there are going to be a lot of twists and turns and shocks. So, if you want, you've got my interest on the new James Bond movie. I just couldn't help but feel like this was the gang saying this was Thundergun is James Bond essentially in this world, in their world. And they want to get back to James Bond just plowing through women and whatnot. And they don't want this new PG-13-ish, although I think it's always been PG-13, so I don't know. But it's also a commentary on how much influence fans have now with social media and the internet. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And, I think it ends with that kind of takeaway, but it also began the episode kind of just laying it out for you right away when they're like, well, the gang's like, oh, well, yeah, we love to criticize and analyze. And the gang essentially is standing in for us entertainment movie fans, TV fans, the consumers. We just love to criticize and analyze. And I mean, this is my show. I criticize and analyze. I don't have any certification or degree. I have two college degrees that are freaking worthless. That's for some reason I feel like, that's enough valid reason for me to go out there and just criticize and analyze. And it's like, sometimes you just have a creative vision and you go forward with it and you feel right about it. So, it's kind of, the commentary is a lot of things. I don't know that there's an answer that they're trying to present to you. They're just pretty much saying, hey, this is the current state of affairs. And, I don't know that there's any way we can fix it. I mean, they were saying that we need to go out to the theaters and support the films that we believe in. And believe me, if I didn't have a 1-year-old that does not mesh well with the movie theater going experience, that I would be going out and supporting these movies. I don't illegally stream and pirate the movies. Have I watched movies that have presented to me illegally? Yes, but I have not gone out seeking illegally streamed movies. And the person knows exactly who they are, and we're coming for you. No, don't say that. Jesus. But yeah, I mean, this is what happens. It's not the 70s where it's like there's one movie at the theater for a year. And it's like, that's the only way you're getting that movie. There's a shit ton of content out there. And and I know this is super tangential of me to go here, but I'll say this. There's two things. And I'm going to try and say them real quickly. One is, I saw a little clip with Hassan Minaj from Patriot Act something. I forget. It's on Netflix. But he went in front of, I guess, Congress and was talking about like, hey, all you like members on the board here, you all graduated in like the 60s and 70s when here was the tuition during the 60s and 70s. And here's what that tuition would be nowadays. And it is mind blowing. And you guys are going to sit there and say, and meanwhile, the pay that we're getting does not correlate with that. It's not keeping up with the rise in college tuition. So the college tuition has risen inexplicably, unbelievably, astronomically, ergonomically. I don't even know. Throw out some more words, Neal. But our pay has not kept up with that. Our pay has remained somewhat flat over the last, 40, 50 years. So it's like, can we just get a handle on this? Because we're drowning in debt, in student loan debt. I wouldn't have paid mine off until I was like 70 something. Really, dude? Yikes. My wife is making a good amount of money. We're at her position and she still hasn't paid off her student loan debt. She went to Penn State, which was in state for her. So she got to reduce costs. So how does that relate? Well, you want like younger folks to head on out to the movies and go out to the movies, but yet we're trying to pay off our student loan debt. And I know what you're saying. It's just a movie. Well, a movie at the theater can cost $20 a pop, almost. Maybe you try to smuggle in your own food. Okay, great. So you reduce the cost there. Then you're impacting the movie theater who depends on concessions. It's just like, yikes. We've really dug ourselves a hole. I'm not saying the country's going to shit or anything. I'm just saying, figure it out. The other part of that, where I was going was there was some kind of animated GIF from the New York Times where it showed the taxation on the rich and how like it used to be. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but in like the 50s, it was like at 70% of your income, which seems like very French. But how that has drastically come down over the years, and now it's like basically almost even with people of lesser income brackets. I don't know. Seems, I'm not saying let's tax the piss out of the rich, but I am saying like just a little bit more, just so that we can not charge out the yin yang, like bring down college tuition a lot, bring it down all the way down, bring it down, tax the wealthy just a little bit more, just a little bit. Like, congratulations on your success and your wealth, but just like, you want to get the economy going again. And I know this is, we've gone off the rails at this point, but like the entertainment industry, I just don't want to have to rely on China, dude. And not to get into Trump or anything like that, but I feel like he doesn't want us to rely on China. Let's just stop relying on China. I don't, and that's just a personal thing. Like, I don't like being in debt. I don't like being in debt to anyone. As soon as someone's like, oh, well, you owe me, it's like, well, I'm immediately working to repay you on that debt. Like, I don't need that on the ledger. No thanks. And I've seen enough Sopranos. Talk about a fucking segue, folks. I've seen enough Sopranos to know that debts have to get repaid one way or another. And that's basically how the mafia, Cosa Nostra, whatever, operates. Just like, oh, well, I see you're in trouble, so I'm going to dig a deeper hole for you that you cannot get out of. And, well, I'll either kill you because I get pleasure from that, or you pay me back plus points. Learning all about points. Whew. So, yeah, so we're about halfway through season 6 of The Sopranos. There's 21 freaking episodes in this season, which is just outrageous. I feel like, why not just, is that like a creative thing? Because you look at like on IMDb and it says, gives you the air dates of these, and it's like it's the second half of season 6 from episode 13 on through 21 is like a year later in 2007. Just like name it season 7. Like, is it from a creative standpoint, was David Chase like, no, this is season 6. This is still the storyline from season. We cannot do it. It's like, there must have been some kind of weird thing in the contract. Like, if it goes to season 7, where an incentive bonus, it's like a roster bonus. HBO pulled like an Adani Echevarria on us all and said, well, if you go to season 7, the $100 billion kicks in. So this is still season 6, right? I don't know. It seems odd. It just seems odd. But yeah, so we got through first half of season 6. First episode, members only. This guy, Gene, who apparently is in his early 50s. I had no idea. I thought this dude was like in his early 40s or 30s. And it's just, he's got a great skin routine. So he's trying to get out of the mob life, and he's trying to move down to Florida with his wife and his kids, and they're looking at a house and it looks like they're going to close. And Tony's like, yeah, we'll think about it. And then Syl's like, nope, that thing, nope. And so Gene's like, oh, okay. So, all right, it's over for me. I'm going to kill myself. And then he hangs himself in the house. Now, come on, Gene. Come on. Like, think it through a little bit, dude. If you're going to off yourself, don't hang yourself in the house, dude. I'm pretty sure he was in the house. Where was he? Was he in the basement? He was in the basement of somewhere, and I assumed it's the house. Maybe it's not the house. If it is the house, Gene, come on. You're better than that. But if it's not in the house, all right. And of course, Junior, who's and I love at Gene's funeral, they're like, oh, this he took the easy way out, and I guess Gene was also working with the feds, and the feds were like, we can't allow you to go down to Florida. So it's just interesting. The mob feels like a cult. It's like, I guess you just grow up in this kind of sheltered, enclosed environment or community where it's like, dude, haven't you seen the history of what goes on with this place? It's like you're either ending up in jail, committing suicide, getting killed. There is no good ending here. There is no happy ending. Like, show me a guy with a happy ending in this fucking crime family. But yet and then they're shocked they can't get out. Oh, I can't believe I can't get out. And the feds are like, and the feds too, that's just like a double whammy when they're like, no thanks. I mean, the feds are the feds, I think they like to, there were some times there where you thought maybe they were getting a little emotionally connected to Adriana and what she was going through. But no, they're just, the feds, dude. They know how to manipulate just as well as the mafia, even though they've been presented as dunces occasionally. So R.I.P. Gene. But I love at the funeral that all the guys from the crew were like, he was a rat and he was talking to the feds. And it's like, newsflash, guys, I feel like you're all either going to flip or do time or whatever. It's like, of course, Junior, who's been slowly losing his mind, shoots Tony in the gut, which I feel like I was mistaken about gut shots, or maybe I'm not mistaken about gut shots, and this just really solidified my position on gut shots, is that I remember from Reservoir Dogs, they do gut shots because it's super slow, painful death. And, Tony getting shot in the gut by his freaking uncle. And this goes back to what I've been saying about the show all along, and I guess mob life in general is like, just it truly is a Greek tragedy, I guess, in that it's literally the two masks, the comedy and the tragedy. Because the fact that you almost don't know what's real sometimes. I don't know how anyone can think anything is real. Seeing what goes on, and talk about loyalty, and you're hugging and kissing the guy, and then next minute it's like, oh, I stabbed him in the face. Like, what? So the fact that Tony was like forgiving of his Uncle June after trying to get him whacked. And just like, and then, it gets shot again by Uncle June. It's just like, oh boy. You think family, at least blood, you'd be safe, but nope. And this is where I feel like the show got really good. You had Tony's in the coma in the hospital, and he's going through this kind of like fever dream type scenario where he's like being mistaken for Kevin Finnerty. He accidentally picked up this salesman's, wallet and briefcase, and he's like getting sued by Buddhist monks. And even in his fever dream, he still cheats. And for some reason, Carmela doesn't sound like Carmela. I thought that was kind of bonkers. It was just Carmela didn't have the same accent. For a minute, I thought, whoa, is this an alternate universe where like he ended up with Charmaine instead of Carmela? Because it almost sounded more like Charmaine. Is that her name? I don't know. Christopher. Oh, I don't think I've ever hated a character more than I've hated Christopher Moltisanti. I don't know if that's popular opinion or unpopular opinion or what. This guy is now trying to get back into the movie business. He ends up with this chick, Kelly, who I don't like. What? He was just banging this girl with the amazing boobs, doing coke in LA after like botching the meeting with Sir Ben Kingsley, robbing Lauren Bacall, punching her in the face to take like a get. And this is where I guess I gave the mafia too much credit, but maybe not enough credit, is the fact that when they see an opportunity, no matter how that felt so small time to fucking knock out an old actress to steal her gift basket from an award show. Yeah, I guess that's what they said. They estimated it like, was it $30,000 or maybe it was more. I thought it was $30,000, but like still $30,000. yeah, I guess money's tight, but like, it's like no matter what opportunity, and even later in the season when Tony and Chris steal all that wine from the back of I mean, it's just like we're willing to put our lives and livelihood on the line. That's what's so bizarre. It's like you feel like Tony and even Chris to a certain extent, maybe lesser extent, they are fairly decent at risk assessment. Not so much Christopher, but Tony for sure. In that they can assess a risk and say, not worth it, not worth it, not worth it. But there's some heat of the moment type activities where it's like, I see this opportunity. It's going to net us $10,000, which seems like such small pickings for an organization that supposedly brings in millions of dollars. That you look at this as a score, and it's like these little rinky-dink operation type things that land them a decent amount of money. But in the scheme of things, it's like such a drop in the water, drop in the bucket. That's like, what? Why would you? I mean, you almost got shot getting the wine. The gift basket thing could have gone easily sideways. I mean, if that was realistic at all, I mean, that person, Lauren Bacall, is probably going to have security. There's going to be some more security in the area, especially post 9/11, in my mind. So, you know, it makes, you know, it just signals to me like this has got to come to an end pretty soon. I mean, you can only be so lucky for so long. I did like the pitch meeting though, where I feel so bad for that JT guy, the guy from Wings. He's like continuously getting caught up in the wash, if you will. Christopher brings him in to write this script, and it's The Ring meets The Godfather, which, you know, but like JT trying to, and Chris trying to, and even little Carmine trying to tell this group of mafiosos about this movie, and they just could not wrap their heads around it. So he's a ghost? No. Part of one of the storyline that I and this is where I've, you know, I mentioned this in a previous episode, which I still to this day I'm like having trouble wrapping my head around, is this Bobby Bacala character. What is gonna happen with this guy? I mean, he's been such a big softy and pussy, like, and I don't mean to use the word pussy, but just like such a sissy, seemingly weak appearing character for so long. That like this is the season that he's going to become a tough guy, you know, that he's starting to pick up the business a little bit more. And I guess it's happening because of Janice. I think I'm pretty sure it's because she keeps on nudging him and is like, come on. You need to move up the chain. So now he's starting to like, okay, I guess I'll shoot a rapper for $7,000 because the rapper needs street cred. And okay, maybe that has happened, but just such an absurd storyline. And then he gets jumped outside a bookie's place. And I thought for a second, and I know this is super racist and stereotypical, but I thought that crew that like jumped him and took his money was like payback for him shooting the rapper. Nope. It's a random assault. I'm pretty sure it was just a random assault. And to think that it can just, in a blink of an eye, in a random act of violence, you live in a world of violence, bloodshed all around you, and you escape all that, and then to end up getting jumped outside your bookie's place and shot dead. I mean, fucking life, dude. And just when you think Tony's turning the corner too, like saying like, oh, I'll build you this house and I'll come back, and all you know, him telling Carmela that it's all over. It's all over. I'm done with that. And it's like, no, you're not, dude. That lasted like, and the moment that he got function back in his dick, he was like, all right, let's go. Well, I am interested in everything that has vagina, pretty much. I mean, yeah, now I'm feeling for Carmela. I mean, a little bit, but it's like, did you really, you would think And so this is why I side with Carmella. It's like you would think something of this magnitude where you get shot in the stomach, you're given a second chance, and your wife was there by your side the entire time, spilling out her guts to you. No offense. And you're still going to cheat on her. Oh, God. It tears me apart. Tears me apart. Paulie. Dude, Paulie. What a roller coaster Paulie's been on. He finds out that his dying aunt is actually his mom, and that the woman who he thought it was his mother is actually his aunt. And so he's feeling a lot of betrayal, and he's having trust issues. And so now, and even with Vito coming out as gay, he takes that as a betrayal of his trust, which I always, the whole Vito storyline too. Like, it's so funny to me that the mafia would view that as a weakness and as a betrayal and disrespect and dishonor. And it's like they greet each other by kissing each other on the cheeks. I just think that's an interesting conundrum, if you will, that they're willing to chastise and condemn, a guy for, kiss me on the mouth. Oh, what are you, Fanuc? But you greet each other by kissing each other on the cheeks and hugging. And there's a lot of affection and physical emotion between them, but like they can't possibly fathom, and to a certain, Tony doesn't exactly embrace the idea, but he's more open to it than and it's insane that, the boss has this open stance towards it, but he, even on his throne, in his position of power, he cannot influence the rest of his crew to feel that same way. And you can see the tides are turning, and they made a point of that in this season. Is like Tony starts to feel it too. He's looking around, and he's like, I don't think I have the command that I thought I once had, and I'm losing my influence and losing my control. And so then he goes and beats up his driver Perry, which that guy, I mean, I know there's some gym-bound, muscle-bound dudes that are just all muscle and can't fight or aren't tough and whatever. But that guy would have kicked the shit out of Tony. I mean, I know Tony's 6'1", 275. It's a pretty stacked dude, but he just came out of the hospital. He just showed his scar, One punch to the gut. That's all you needed. And then he goes down. Of course, he vomited up a bunch of blood afterwards. So maybe he did get hit in the gut. I don't know. But I loved the episode with Johnny Sack's daughter getting married and the feds making it a point to make a spectacle out of this. So they turn on the siren, the lights, they're beeping the horn when they arrive because they want everyone to see Johnny Sack in handcuffs. And then, of course, they could have definitely waited until the daughter left in her limo or whatever after the wedding. But nope, they cut her right off, lights on, sirens on, to really stick it to Johnny Sack. Like, we didn't want you to be allowed to enjoy this. You shouldn't be allowed to enjoy this with everything that you've done. And so we're going to make a big deal out of this. I thought that was gold. And I feel like Tony passing out when he's trying to put on his shoes, because there was like the metal detectors and heightened security at the wedding. I feel like that happens. That kind of stuff must happen at every like big Italian wedding where there's like 400 people. Like, the odds are against you. Like, something dramatic is gonna happen. I'm surprised there's not like a reality show on Lifetime or Bravo that just follows big Italian weddings. I thought maybe there was. It was called like My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Wasn't there like a TV show? There was the movie, but I think they made a TV show based on it. Or it might have been about gypsies. I don't know. They should do big Italian weddings, though, because I guarantee there are multiple storylines that will culminate big time at the ceremony or reception. Vito. Vito, Vito, Vito. Vito, Vito, Vito. Vito, Vito, Vito. Fucking Artie, man. I feel for Artie. I just see he's constantly getting screwed over, and yes, and some of it is his fault. You know, when I felt like they were talking, like when Charmaine and Tony are talking to Artie, I felt like they were talking to me to a certain extent, because it's like, you know, Artie has this, it's his baby. This restaurant is his baby. He wants to see it succeed, and so he's doing everything in his power that he thinks is right to make it succeed. And it turns out, like, hey, you talking to the guests as they're trying to eat dinner, not a great move. And so he gets like offended by that. And sometimes you just have to pull back. But like, you know, he gets seduced and suckered into this deal with Tony, where Tony's just running up a insane tab that he's probably never going to pay off. And now he's got this credit card scandal or scam where Amex is suspending him, and so that's like 30% of his business. And it turns out it's the hostess from Albania and Benny. This like, oh, Benny is like, it goes like Christopher is my number one who needs to get taken down, then Benny. That guy is he's like physically not intimidating at all. Just not an intimidating guy at all. And he's now been beaten to near death by two different people. One, I think, was it Phil Leotardo in the parking lot? But he had some goons with him. And then, of course, from Artie, who's not like, you know, Hulk Hogan by any standards. But it just stinks. And Artie keeps on throwing this like passive aggressive shit at Tony, and you're just waiting for Tony to be like, all right, that's it. You know, because Tony has proven time and time again, like, it doesn't matter if you're family blood related or not, you know, mafia over everything. MOE. Not money over everything, which I guess, yeah, same. Money, mafia. The Vito storyline. The guy that they got, because, you know, Vito takes off for New Hampshire because, you know, it's coming out that he's gay and he can't do business, and he abandons his wife and his kids. And there's like a hot second where you're like, is he just going to like live in New Hampshire happily as this gay man because he sees like a gay couple, and like the guy at the diner just happens to be gay, and he's like, and the guy at the counter, you know, I'm not gay. Not gay. But for some reason, like if I were to picture like the stereotypical like gay sex object, it would be dude who rides a motorcycle, is a firefighter, has that mustache. It's like, and can make a mean pancake like that. Those are all on the list of things that if you were to make your dreamboat gay partner, like that would be it. And of course, it's just so funny that it's like, would that guy be attracted to Vito? I don't know. Vito's definitely a bottom. Power bottom? I don't know. But of course, as soon as the guy says, I love you, and Vito says, I love you back, it's like, well, we have to throw a pipe bomb into this whole situation. Let's just grenade it up. Grenade it up. Fucking AJ, dude. And like for Vito to think, just to put a bow on Vito, like to think that Vito, and this ties in with Gino, the first episode, like to think that this guy, his brain is so polluted by a lifetime of this lifestyle, the mafia lifestyle, not the gay lifestyle, that he thinks he's drawn back to it, and he thinks he can still do business. He can still negotiate and make a deal, because that's kind of like the mob mentality. Like there's always a deal to be had, and it will always be in my favor. I will work it out, and I will come to terms with, you know, something that will benefit me. And so he thinks he can go back to Tony, and Tony seems open to it, but no one else is. And so Tony wants to take care of business, and instead, Phil Leotardo, the hothead, takes care of business for him. And so you can see, and this is what Tony was talking about with Christopher. He was like, we can't do everything that you're suggesting, Christopher, because it's going to lead to that whole 7-year war that happened back in the day. between the New York and New Jersey families, where it was just like tit for tat for 7 years. We can't go down that road. And of course, he's going down that road because of Phil Leotardo, who's just unwilling to negotiate. I mean, say what you will about Johnny Sack, but at least he was a little more. He was, you know, he was always very pissed anytime you proposed anything, and it would be like over the top no, but then you just keep talking to him. And he's like, all right. It's just like, that's just Johnny Sack to a T. Like, I'm just going to get super furious and offended by your counter offer or your offer. And then we're going to have one more talk and it's going to be fine. Whereas Phil Leotardo is just like, no. You know, Bobby coming after Paulie Walnuts because Paulie, you know, kind of half-assed that amusement park ride at the feast or whatever, and the kid got hurt, and so Bobby finds out it's Paulie's fault, and he goes after Paulie, and now Paulie's starting to, you know, I mean, Paulie's disenfranchised. He's depressed. I mean, he got diagnosed with prostate cancer. He finds out his aunt's his mom's his aunt. It's like his mind is not all there. But I love that they're trying to get Bobby to be a tough guy now. It's like, I don't know. And maybe this whole shooting where he gets his eye taken out or whatever, that's kind of like, all right, does he now have street cred? Ironically, like Bobby shoots the rapper to get street cred, but now does him getting shot, now he has street cred, and now, you know, Tony, even Janice came to Tony and was like, you got to make, you know, it's shocking that Bobby has not moved up the chain at all. And Tony's like, all right, you know, whatever, fuck you. But now that Bobby's gotten shot, is that kind of a badge of honor? And he's like, all right, well, I feel like I should reward you, even though it wasn't in the line of duty. Really, it was just a bunch of like random guys. Oh. Of course, Vito eats it. Vito thinking that he can go back and everything's going to be hunky-dory, and Phil takes him out. I mean, in the most brutal way possible, just beating him to death with pipes. Like, oh. And of course, the guy who did it, Dom or whatever, that fat guy, coming in and talking shit on Tony's home turf and expecting to come out of that okay. What the fuck are these people thinking? I'll just leave with this for the Sopranos. AJ, man. I don't want to say AJ is like the OBJ of the Sopranos, but it feels like that in a way, that he's the Odell Beckham Jr. of the Sopranos. Like, you get mad at him because you think that he's a cancer, right? I shouldn't use the C word, but you think that he's like this bad part of the family. But then he makes some good points. He's like, hey, you want me to make money and make money moves? Cardi B shout out. I'm doing that. I was charging people for cups at this high school party. I was making money on that. I was making money off the drums. I was making money on. So he's making these kind of savvy-ish business moves that are kind of in line with what Tony does for a living. And yet the parents don't appreciate that because it's not exactly legit. And it's like, well, you know, look at you, dude. You know, I learned it by watching you, Dad. I learned it by watching you. So Tony finally making a stand. Now might be a little too late. He's got them a construction job where AJ has to show up at like 7 a.m. Oh man, I'm not, you know. Meadow is like, makes me happy that I had a daughter. AJ makes me very scared to have a son. And like I have multiple friends that have like 3 or 4 sons, and I'm just like, what is that world like? Do I even want to know? Of course they did. They definitely, like, Tony and Carmela like coddled him for most of his upbringing and then just kept rewarding him when he was not to be rewarded. So you kind of let it fester and snowball, and it gets out of hand. And, you know, of course, I'm saying this now and fast forward like 18 years later, and I'm having this same issue with my son, probably. So I have no right to talk. Oh, AJ. And maybe he will turn it around. I mean, he definitely, I know it from an older, and this goes back to like boomer versus millennial type bullshit, which I don't want to put labels on any of that. It's like an older generation and a younger generation. And the older generation sees the younger generation doing something differently, not the way they would do it. And they get upset and they want the younger generation to conform to what their vision is. And it's like, times have changed. Times are different. AJ's going about his thing. And like, yeah, he got fired from Blockbuster. But the fact that he was selling stuff and trying to protect the environment, yes, AJ is annoying. But he does have some good points. Like, okay, that's bad for the environment. I'll sell it to people who want it. Problem solved. So he does think in a very capitalist, entrepreneurial way. But, he's young. He's going to make mistakes. He's the Odell Beckham of The Sopranos. Such a stupid allegory. Allegory? No, not right. All right, let's talk movies. I saw Ma over the weekend on Friday night with Octavia Spencer. We rented it. And this was on the list. I think it was Rotten Tomatoes. Their editorial team puts together a list of like rotten movies that we love. So this Ma got a rotten rating from critics. I think it was like 50 some odd %, which is barely like not fresh. And then it got like a 60+% fresh rating from audiences. So I had to check it out. I thought, okay, this is new to rent. Let's rent it. Let's pop it on. I'm not really a big horror guy. Not huge in the horror on account of the night terrors. That's a big problem. But I will watch one here and there, especially when it's from Blumhouse Productions, because they put out such great stuff over the past couple of years. Most notably, Get Out. So I was very interested. So if you don't know the story or the plot line, here's a quick synopsis. A woman who works at a veterinarian's office. She is asked by a group of teenagers in high school to buy alcohol for them. And she says, she's hesitant, but she says, okay. Because she notices one of the kids from the group is the son of a person that she went to high school with, a guy. And their relationship, so she kind of becomes closer with this group of teenagers because the group of teenagers just want a place to drink. And they can't do it at the Rocks because the cops were called on them actually by Ma, Octavia Spencer. So they need a place to drink. They need a place to party and hang out, relax. And so Ma eventually offers up her place. The group, news gets out, word gets out, as it always does in high school. Like, this is the place to jam. Like, we'll be completely fine. Ma's cool, da-da-da. And over the course of the movie, you start to see, like, okay, something bad happened to this Ma person. Her name is Sue Ann, I think, in the movie. But we have, like, little flashback vignettes, little mini scenes of her when she was in high school with some other high schoolers, and you don't necessarily know who the other high schoolers at the beginning of this series of flashbacks and vignettes, but you come to find out it's all the parents of the current group of teenagers that she's, hosting at her house. You also start to find out, like, okay, so you're like, all right, something bad definitely happened with this Ma character in high school with this group of high schoolers. You find out, okay, the group of high schoolers, these are the parents of the current crop of teenagers, high schoolers that she's hosting. Okay. You also find out, she has a daughter and she's keeping the daughter captive because she doesn't want what happened to her in high school to happen to the daughter. Seems somewhat reasonable, but she takes it to the next level. She's a little extreme about it. So the whole time you're like, all right, something bad is gonna go down. How bad is what happened? And then there should be a correlating, consequence that is equal to what happened to her in high school. It's weird movie logic. I know that because we all respond differently to trauma. and to negative events in our life. Sometimes we go overboard. Sometimes we suppress it. I get it. But like, what happens in this movie? So if you haven't watched it, you can feel free to skip over the next section, look at the timestamps. But if you have watched it, let's talk about it. Okay. First of all, if you haven't watched it, definitely rent it. I mean, it's a good movie. Octavia Spencer gives a great performance. I think there are great performances across the board. Juliette Lewis is in this. I believe the hot girl from Booksmart, the modelish type girl, is the main character protagonist in this role. She plays Juliette Lewis's daughter, which that's a whole thing to begin with, because it's like they don't really establish that, okay, this mother and daughter is moving back to where the mother went to high school, that same area. That doesn't become clear. And I don't know if that hurts the movie or helps the movie. I think it hurts the movie. I think they wanted it to play out as like, oh, wait, what? They went to high school there? But you're kind of like, why didn't they know that? You're kind of like, I don't know about this. Like they're trying to play tricks on me. You trying to trick me? So I feel like whenever you catch a movie trying to do that to you, you feel a little offended. You're like, how dare you? Well, you got to give it props to a certain extent, because they were trying to do something special and it just didn't pan out. But the fact that like the daughter, it didn't seem as if the daughter knew, like, okay, I'm going to the same high school that my mom went to, and these kids are all the kids of the parents that went to high school with my mom. Like that just was not clear at all. So I think that might have hurt the movie a little bit, because you're sitting there going, but does she know? Is this a surprise? Why is she not reacting? I don't know. That's just probably me, like definitely overthinking the situation. But okay, so now we get into the spoilers section. Dude, it turns out that, okay, Ben Hawkins, who's this head of the security firm, his wife passed from cancer or something like that. He ends up like hooking up with this Mercedes chick who he went to high school with. And like they all used to like hang out with Sue Ann, aka Ma, back in the day. And like he made it appear as if he was into her and sent her notes, and eventually they hung out at parties, and that all seemed okay, even though you got a weird feeling in your stomach, like, oh boy, this is not going to go well. And then he's like, meet me in the closet. She goes in the closet and gives a blowjob, comes out of the closet, like the entire class or school is hanging outside the closet, and he's out there like, ha 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 ha. Like, it's a prank. She blew someone else. She thought she was blowing Ben. She was blowing some random guy. I'm not saying that's not traumatic. It has to be traumatic. Never happened to me. Okay. I never pulled a prank like that. Never been really the subject of a prank like that. I don't think, unless I'm suppressing it, in which case, here comes a homicidal rage. But yes, okay, traumatic, definitely, not arguing that. But the absolute rampage that Ma goes on afterwards is out of control. I mean, and this is why I mentioned in the introduction to this episode how you can somewhat relate this to the new Joker movie. Does the punishment fit the crime? Horrible prank. No one should have to go through that. It's awful. I can understand. I feel for her immensely, but to run over Mercedes with a truck, I mean, like the definition of trucking someone, like trucked her. Whoa, yikes. And you know, Mercedes sucks. So it's like, as an audience, we're like, oh man, but yeah, she kind of deserved that. You're like, all right, maybe she deserved that because she sucks so much, you know, for like shitting on Juliette Lewis in the casino. It's like, you know, it's a single mom just trying to make ends meet, dude. And you're like, I think the only reason you're like here in the casino is because Ben's got your back. And then Ben also like coming across as like, oh, he's this nice guy who lost his wife to cancer, but he also pulled this horrific, awful prank on this young woman. And then you see him like, it's very odd. I just, there are points in the movie where you're just like, I don't know if this works. Cause like he goes to the veterinarian's office and is like, oh, I didn't know you worked here. And she's like, oh, I just started working here. And you're like, okay, I guess that makes sense. And he's like, and they're kind of being really nice to each other. And then he's inviting her to the bar, which I thought, now I'm saying it was a pretty cool twist. Like he gets her to the bar and she's in a public place and he's like, I know that my son's going to your house. Don't fuck with my son. Don't like, you know, if I find out that he's near your house again, I'm going to come for you. And I think he said he might kill her. I don't know. Pretty serious shit. But like, did he say he'd kill her? I don't think he said kill her. Did he? Ooh. If he did, then, oh, okay. I get it. But I don't think he did. Anyway. His fate. He meets his end like arguably maybe worse than getting trucked. I don't know. Never been trucked. I mean, I've been hit pretty hard on the football field, but this one was just grosser. Like she takes the blood from Juliette Lewis's dog, drains the blood from the dog, which that causes them to go into a state of panic, and then hooks up that bag of blood, the dog's blood, to Ben tied to her bed and slits his wrist. Yay. Oh, that one was tough. Oh. And I don't even know if dog's blood does anything to you. I haven't even researched it. I was afraid to Google it. I was like, I don't even want to know, but like, it cannot be good to have another species' blood running through your veins. Although, is it the beginning of like, you know, movie mind kicks in? It's like, well, maybe he becomes like a dog man, werewolf type guy, and like, you know, whatever. Maybe that's, you know, the ending wasn't exactly clear. I mean, he looked dead, but maybe Ma 2, Ben's revenge or something. You know, I don't know. That's just my movie mind kicked in. But like, you know, stabs the son after kissing him, stabs the son in the stomach. The sewing Haley's mouth shut. Oh, dude. Oh boy. I mean, gratuitous, dude. And burning the I don't even know what the kid's name is with the iron on the stomach. And then she paints the black kid's face white, which that really was like, oh, that one was tough. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why. It just, everything else was physically, viscerally painful. And you watch, and then and you're like, oh my God, what is she gonna do to the black kid? And then she paints his face white, and it's like, that is not. They're not physically inflicting pain, but it's like, yeah, you're a white person. Just like, oh. Yeah. That one was like, oh. Like, really? No. So she went on a goddamn rampage. And you find out that the daughter that she has, that she's keeping captive, like, I guess isn't even really sick. She just keeps hitting her up with some kind of, I don't know, sedative or like horse tranquilizers or something. And then she doesn't really need the wheelchair, but yeah, she kind of does need the wheelchair because she's so out of it from taking all these shots from her mom. And Jeannie comes to the rescue. But my point being, yo, dude, because you gave a stranger a blowjob in a dark closet, I understand that is, it's awful. I get it. But like, now this is how I'm going to relate it to the new Joker movie. So the big what to do about Joker hubbub, the buzz is like, okay, incels or involuntary celibates, white men who don't get laid are going to see this movie. They're going to see what the Joker does and be like, oh, because the Joker, I guess, succeeds in the movie. I haven't watched it yet, which it stinks. I want to go see it. but I also kind of don't want to go see it because you read these stories about these people who just ruined the fucking movie experience. And I understand the media is looking for any potential story tied to the Joker movie. And I'm sure this happens at other screenings where people are kicked out for talking or being wild or rowdy or smoking in the theater when they're not supposed to. That probably happens at other movie screenings, but they're not getting the attention because it's not the Joker. Because people were expecting, crazy shit to go down at the theaters because of this movie. And it didn't really happen. It's happened to a certain extent, but I feel like those kind of stuff happens anyway at those theaters. I don't know. But so the theory was that this is a dangerous movie. Okay. The Joker's a dangerous movie because it's going to encourage incels to extract the revenge and to get their revenge, and that the Joker provides a blueprint for that. And I would argue, and this is a stupid argument, but I'm going to throw this argument out there. I just want to throw this argument out for argument's sake. What's preventing people who have been pranked in high school, like Ma was pranked in high school, to go out and to to exact the same carnage that Ma did? Run over your arch nemesis with a truck, kidnap another arch nemesis and bleed them out and give them dog's blood. Stab the kid of a parent you went to school with because the parent was an asshole. And Juliette Lewis apologizes, but it's like, you're apologizing in a burning house. I mean, she's already gone off the deep end here, Juliette Lewis. Like, I don't know that an apology is really going to work right now. I mean, it's good that you got it out, but this probably should have happened a long time ago. But again, did she think that she needed to apologize? I can't remember her exact involvement. She was around, she was in that group, but I don't think she was like coordinating anything. Unless I'm mistaken, I think she might have been jealous of the attention that Ma was getting from Ben, and maybe she had a thing for Ben, and you could see that they kind of connected at the casino, and like maybe they do have something for each other. But and she didn't do anything to prevent it or to stop it. So is she, complicit? It's one of those things, like inaction is the worst action. She should have said, no, this is wrong, don't do this, but she didn't. So she's apologizing for that. Again, in her mind, she's thinking, it was a bad prank. It sucks, but she doesn't, it's not at the forefront of her mind to go and apologize to Sue Ann, to Ma. So if you've been pranked in high school, you've been the subject of an awful prank that completely humiliated you and ruined your life. I mean, think about Carrie, the movie Carrie, where she's getting, they name her queen or whatever. And I never saw it, but I know the famous scene, the pig's blood comes down on her and she loses her shit. Like, okay. So if you've seen Carrie or you've seen Ma and you've been humiliated in high school to the nth degree, are we not worried that those same people, and there are a lot of people who have been pranked and humiliated in high school, are they going to come back and go on a fucking homicidal tear, killing streak? I feel like you can make this argument for any movie, to be honest. But Joker, because it is a white man, and I guess most white men are serial killers, and most white men are at the heart of mass shootings. We have to raise our senses a little bit and heighten security. But I started to make the argument a little bit. Like, you could say that with just about any movie. Hey, were you humiliated at summer camp? Did you almost drown in the lake because two counselors were fucking? Well, pick up a hockey mask and a machete and go to town on everyone. Like, I don't know. I think IndieWire put out a list of the 11 most dangerous movies of the 21st century, just trying to capitalize on this Joker madness. I mean, I don't think they did a phenomenal job. They basically just asked a bunch of writers and editors on staff, what do you consider the most dangerous movie of the 21st century? And I think some of them took it seriously. Some of them didn't. I mean, here's part of the list. There were some on the list that I have not seen nor have I ever heard of, so I'm omitting them. But like, the first person cited The Incredibles, an animated movie about a family of superheroes. I maybe I was too high on caffeine to understand what's going on. You know, when you have too many cups of coffee and you're trying to read something and it's just like meow, 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 meow. That was pretty much what was going on in my brain trying to read this opening, this writer's choice of The Incredibles. Something about inequality and superhero being in your blood. That made it dangerous. I don't know. I don't think anyone's looking at The Incredibles and being like, that right there, like 50 years from now, they're going to be like, do you know what was the downfall of American civilization? Western civilization? The Incredibles. I don't think anyone's saying that, but dangerous. I mean, you know, Minions. This was from a school teacher, and so I can understand the approach here that Minions is one of the most dangerous movies of the 21st century, because it's a slippery slope, right? The Minions were like these great ancillary characters in Despicable Me, and she's saying that Despicable Me should have been kind of like a one-off. If it is a franchise, let's stick to the good stories, the good parts of it, not focus on the Minions, and instead we get a whole Minions movie. And she's saying that, you know, the Minions movie is like the equivalent of junk food. It's like Minions are good in little small doses here and there on your cheat day, but we don't need like 90 plus minutes of fucking Minions. I mean, she makes a good point, but at the same time, it's like dangerous. I don't know, you know, if Minions becomes like that is what all content offerings are, we are in trouble. We are definitely in idiocracy. Like we're heading towards idiocracy if all we're getting is, you know, Minions. But I don't think that's going to happen. So most dangerous. It is dangerous, but most dangerous. I don't know about that. Next person said Sicario because it glorifies Narcos and I guess trivializes or minimalizes the war on drugs in Mexico. And they went on to say, like, since 2008, like Mexico has just been a war zone all across the land, and it's ruined families. And I totally get that. I just don't understand how that's dangerous. I mean, I can understand if you're saying like, if Sicario is your only exposure to the Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, Mexican culture, and that's all you think, you know, you just, if you really think that all Mexicans are drug dealers and rapists, no, dude, obviously not. I mean, you'd have to have a pea brain to think that, but I feel like the people who are watching Sicario, most of the people watching Sicario appreciate that and understand that. That being said, yeah, we do need a movie that is not so not so focused on Mexico being this war-torn area. And if you are a Mexican or an immigrant from Mexico, like, how do we present a different kind of story, different angle, different perspective? I get that. Most dangerous though. So you're telling me that people are watching Sicario and thinking like Sicario led to Trump getting elected and Sicario led to us wanting to build the wall and Sicario. No, dude. No. Again, I see your point, but no. This was an interesting one that I didn't really think about until now. 3 billboards outside Ebbing, Missouri. Because it plays to the white person as savior card. So you have Sam Rockwell plays the racist cop, and he's kind of redeems himself to a certain extent over the course of the movie after what he done to some black folk. And then you have Frances McDormand, a white person, even though she's a woman, who is the one who, you know, is able to get him to I don't know, correct his evil ways. You know, I think it's based on a true story. So it's, unless I'm missing something, it's like, you don't want to, I don't know that you want to, I was going to use the term whitewash, which is not appropriate, but I don't think you want to really twist the based on a true story that much so that it's not a white person, even though that's the person responsible. So I don't know how that's dangerous unless they completely, it was not a white person, Frances McDormand-esque character who went about doing this and got this white cop to quit being such an ass. I don't know. I mean, geez, they really, ugh. So, I mean, it's based on a true story, I believe, I'm pretty sure. So if it's not, then okay, maybe you can play around there and say, like, we've seen enough as the white person as savior storyline, angle, device, if you will. So let's not go down that road. I think people were more, I'm saying a lot. A woman. The fact that it was a woman who is empowered and didn't take no for an answer. I think that was the main point of it. But we're still focusing in on the color of the skin, which, I think that's more dangerous than anything, to be honest. I think we should look at people as people and not by the color of the skin. But if we're going to continue to go down this road, you'll see later on when I talk about Joker what I'm trying to get at with that line of thinking. The next one's Zero Dark 30. I thought this was interesting. The demonization of Muslims. And this writer says that the research debunks the theory that torture provides meaningful information. I don't know. I'd like to see that research. But I don't. Zero Dark 30 is one of the most dangerous movies of the 21st century. I don't know. Demonization of Muslims. I mean, it's about the capture of Osama bin Laden, the fucking criminal mastermind behind 9/11. Like, dude, obviously you don't want to demonize Muslims, but when it comes to Muslims who actually committed war crimes, I feel like you can't position them as goody two shoes. So some interesting picks on this list, but of course Joker made the list, and I'll try and read this quickly. But the writer for Joker, quote, says, most people are very easily swayed by visual messaging or outright propaganda. Okay, I can see that, and I can see why that reasoning right there could be applied to Zero Dark 30, maybe to Three Billboards, maybe Sicario. When watching those movies, and I understand I'm a straight white man, I'm a straight white American. So I understand that, I come from my perspective is limited, and I come from a certain background and whatever. But I'm also, I consider myself to be fairly educated, fairly open-minded. And I don't think I saw these movies as propaganda against those cultures. I'd love to get more feedback and weigh-ins from those cultures to say, obviously not great. They probably don't feel great, but anyway, most people are very easily swayed by visual messaging or outright propaganda. Okay, yes. If we buy into the now commonly held belief that Will and Grace helped normalize LGBT acceptance among many straight TV viewers, then there's no reason to believe that a movie like Joker, which will be watched and rewatched by a massive number of younger people, has zero capacity to wield the same power. I mean, I don't think anyone's saying it has zero capacity. But at the same time, like, if you're trying to make that analogy, so would straight people watch Will and Grace and want to be gay? No. But so by people watching Joker, we're more accepting of white men wanting to lash out? No. The writer goes on to say, many of Joker's passionate fans will leave this movie having seen a representation of their favorite character on screen that looks eerily like what they feel and experience on a daily basis. I mean, we're now going to criticize movies for being realistic. So movies shouldn't be realistic. I don't know. Writer goes on to say, and they will have seen how that character deals with it and how he gets openly worshipped by a legion of acolytes for those actions. That is a profoundly bad set of ideas and visuals to put in the minds of some of these people. You know, that happens though. I mean, to ignore that and to, I don't know. I feel like, you know, there are all kinds of evil people that are worshipped, but that's not what those people are existed. They're going to exist to a certain degree. Hopefully we, you know, if you look at the statistics, I think even though mass shootings or public shootings have gone up, that overall violence has gone down. I could be completely wrong about that. And, you know, we're human. We tend to glorify awful, evil people. But I don't know, how does that movie work if he's not worshipped by a legion of acolytes? I mean, the whole point of the story is that he's not accepted by the vast majority of society. He lashes out, does his own thing, loses his mind, whatever. And then people identify with that, relate with that, and also support that. And it makes him feel good. So, like, I feel like if he didn't get the legions of supporters, I mean, like, you look at Mindhunter, and I keep going back to Mindhunter, but these serial killers are doing this because they want their legacy. They want a legacy. They want to be famous, or they want to be well known. They want to leave their imprint on civilization, on society. They do this for the fame. So why would Joker be different? Like, Joker's doing this to get acceptance in a community, to be part of a group, because he's been ostracized. Does the movie work if you don't have a legion of worshipers? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, yeah, sure. The filmmaker has a responsibility probably to not go full bore and to glorify certain things, but at the same time, it has to be realistic. The writer goes on to say, I can't think of another case where a film about a revered cultural character will have a significant portion of its audience leaving the theater knowing they could personally do everything they just saw happen on screen, but this one will. We would be foolish to think that merely surviving the weekend without a major incident means Joker didn't have a profoundly dangerous effect on many people. Profoundly dangerous effect on many people. Because of a movie, I just, you know, I feel like, I mean, they were saying this shit about Grand Theft Auto. I feel like this shit's been going on for so long. I feel like you can only blame the media and entertainment for so much. There's some sick people in the world. Grand Theft Auto came out, and the news outlets made it seem like everyone is going to go out and start carjacking. I played that game religiously, for hours on end. And yeah, I felt like I had just done a drug after getting done with it. I played it till sunrise one time, but I didn't immediately go out and just start shooting into the streets randomly and, you know, dealing drugs and, you know. Honestly, it's going to come to the point where you have to take like a test in order to experience something, to judge whether or not you are psychologically, you have the mental makeup to enjoy it and not recreate what you've seen. That's the future. You're going to go to the theater, you get your retina scanned, and they're going to be like, oh man, I'm sorry, you cannot come to see Joker 5 because yeah, your brain composition chemically cannot handle it. Which that'll never happen. So that's my review of Ma. I know that got off the rails, but like you can see my point. Like in any movie where there is a villain or an antagonist, you're basically criticizing Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips for creating a compelling antagonist, a villain who is believable, who is somewhat relatable, who's human, who's complex, who's complicated, who some people can relate to. You're criticizing that. And I don't think we should be criticizing that. I don't think we need more vanilla villains in movies and TV shows. That doesn't make the experience more enjoyable. Ma was an enjoyable movie because we got to see a very complex person, someone who put her belief into another group of people and was timid and shy, but opened herself up and got burnt, and then tried to shelter and protect her own daughter and took it to the extreme. So I am for developed characters. Joker's not real, dude. Joker doesn't exist. It's not a real person. Should we not have documentaries about Hitler? Should we not have documentaries about the narcos? Should we not tell these stories about these bad, evil people? It's a fine line. Obviously, you don't want to glorify them, but at the same time, you need to give the audience a better understanding of who they are and who they were and what they went through. And hopefully that prevents a lot of that shit from happening in the future. I'll end the movie section with this. Based on the success of Joker, I think DC is now exploring a solo movie with Lex Luthor as in an alternate universe, I guess, where Superman doesn't exist and Lex Luthor is the US president. DC, you crazy. Freaking DC, dude. And now it makes sense. Like in a previous episode, I was talking about how Marvel has their blueprint and it's worked like a charm and they're crushing it. And DC kind of tried to copy it, is like trying to copy it, but also trying to take their own route. And maybe this is their own route. Like, fuck it. We're going to do R-rated movies about villains. I don't hate it. Because this ties in with, South Park and Always Sunny. Marvel has gone the China PG-13 route, and DC's like, you know what? Counter programming. We're going to go the Deadpool route, even though Deadpool is technically Marvel. Like R-rated and go against the grain. I'm not saying I wouldn't watch that Lex Luthor movie. I just, is Lex Luthor as compelling as Joker? I mean, Joker is like the best, as far as I can tell, the best villain in the DC universe. So, and I know that there were times where I enjoyed, what is his name? Robert Loggia. No. What was his name? The guy who played Lex Luthor in the 80s Superman movies. He had some good shit here and there. So I don't know about Jesse Eisenberg. I'd still give him a shot. I don't think he was that bad. I just think he needs to refine it a little bit more. Luthor as U.S. president. Where is that going? Obviously influenced by Trump. It's almost like, I feel like it's a lot of studios now. They do, was it South Park? That like skewered The Simpsons, and they were like, this is how The Simpsons is written. We just have a bunch of, or Family Guy. This is how Family Guy is written. We just have a bunch of manatees push balls into holes, and then like we make jokes based on the, it's basically like DC is like, okay, what's trending on Google Trends? And I don't know, maybe we shouldn't knock it, because I know a lot of people online, that's how they make videos, is like through looking at Google Trends. But Google Trend, they just look at Google Trends and are like, let's take Donald Trump and Joker and mash them together. Boom, movie. I don't know. We'll see how that pans out. But yeah, that's it for movies. I'll briefly get into the Mets. Let's talk Mets. Mickey Callaway gone, fired. I think he basically took off right after the end of the season, but I think he had to. There's a lot of news coming through my brain lately, so it's hard to keep track of everything. I think he left because of Jewish holiday. Am I wrong about that? Maybe. But Rosh Hashanah? Is it Rosh Hashanah? Or is it Yom Kippur? One of the two, right? Maybe, yeah. So he left because of that, I guess. And so the Mets, Brody Van Wagenen and the Wilpons took their time, let him have his time away. And then I guess they actually went down to Florida and fired him in person, which is so nice. Personally, that's a tough look to fire a guy after 86 wins. I know he cost the Mets a bunch of wins this year, but when you have a player's manager, as I mentioned in a previous episode, like, do you want to disrupt that chemistry that he has with the players, or is he really not a player's manager like we all thought he was? So they cut him short. I don't know it would have been that damaging to have him for one more season, but now it looks like Joe Girardi's interested. As I said before, I'm all for Joe Girardi. I see no downside to that other than maybe cost, expense. They're also, and Girardi's playing it coy, but he's also said that he's done his research on the Mets. It's like, why would you bring up doing research on the Mets if you're not interested in the job? So it really comes down. My guess is it'll come down to price, cost, and the Wilpons have been notoriously stingy. But I mean, this is the time to spend. You're getting most of your core young talent back. They're going to be they're going to be with you for the next 3-4 years. Now's the time to make a splash from a managerial standpoint and bring in someone who can steer the ship, who's had talent and knows how to use it. And that's Joe Girardi. Buck Showalter was mentioned, and I don't hate that. Buck's all right. He's not Joe Girardi. For some reason, I tweeted about this. Buck Showalter reminds me of Bill Belichick without all the rings. It just seems he has the kind of same look and demeanor. Of course, he has more personality, I think, at least with the press, than Bill Belichick. I don't know. I wouldn't hate them getting signing Buck Showalter if Girardi goes elsewhere, but if they pick Showalter over Girardi, it's like, what are you doing, dude? Luis Rojas has also been mentioned. I don't know dick about this guy. Nope. I should have done research and I didn't. So sorry. But he seems to be a candidate in the running. David Cohn, I guess, threw his hat into the ring. He was like, if I would explore it, if approached, and it's like, okay, you've been a broadcaster. I don't know that you have a ton of coaching experience. And then, of course, Carlos Beltran. And this is where it gets weird because you have, I think it was like Andy Martino, who I believe is with SNY, saying, oh, no way. Beltran wouldn't even consider it. Not even thinking about it. And then like the next day being like, oh, yeah, Beltran's interested. Like, get your story straight, dude. I know you need clicks, but come on. And I'll tell you what, if I had to rank these candidates, I think you go Girardi 1, Beltran 2, Showalter 3, Rojas 4, Cohen 5. Madden's definitely out of the running. I don't think Madden's going to consider New York at all. I think he's the Angels, right? Is where he's probably going to go. And then I know Clint Hurdle is available, but I don't really see him. He hasn't really been mentioned in terms for the Mets job. So Carlos Beltran would be interesting. I know there's been a really rocky relationship with the Mets. Now he's saying, like, if he goes in the Hall of Fame, he has to consider the Mets as the team he goes in with. It's like, dude, who else would you consider? The Yankees, the Royals? Like, who else? The Astros? Who else are you going to pick? Don't do that to us. So if he's looking for a way to really retcon his reputation with the Mets and the fan base, become a manager, win a World Series. That's it. Your legacy is cemented. You go in the Hall of Fame as a Mets freaking legend. Any kind of ill will or sour taste or whatever is gone. Become the manager, win a World Series. Hell, become a manager, take us to the playoffs. I think, the Mets fans, we're not that hard-nosed, hard-headed. We're pretty forgiving if you make an effort. And I think Beltran, he did so much for the team for so long. And had a kind of an unceremonious end, getting dealt. But I mean, him managing. Imagine we re-sign Wheeler and Beltran manages us to a World Series, and Wheeler's part of the rotation. That's got some feel-good vibes to it. So yeah, I mean, Beltran would be interesting, but Girardi has got to be the play. And my assumption is that they're just waiting for his broadcasting to be done until they can actually sit down with him and have serious discussions. I guess that's what's going on. But he was, Girardi was asked on air about like Pete Alonso or something like that. And he ended up pleading the fifth, which, all right, touche, Joe. I see what you're doing. Getting us all riled up. Mets released a video, the top 10 moments from the 2019 season. And my memory is awful, but this video seemed pretty much on point. 10 was Robbie Cano's 3-home run game. 9 is Luis Guillorme's home run to tie the game against the Nats in the bottom of the 8th. 8 was back-to-back homers from J.D. Davis and Wilson Ramos against the Nats. There's a bunch of these just against the Nats. I think like 1, 2... 3, 4 of the 10 are against the Nationals. I guess those are like our top rivals now. For a long time, it was the Braves. It was the Phillies for I would say most of the 2000s, mid 2000s, 05, 06, 07, 08. That was pretty intense. And then now it's the Nationals, I'd say. Noah Syndergaard's home run against the Reds is 7. Okay. 6 is Alonso's home run derby win. 5 is J.D. Davis's walk-off against the Indians in the 10th, which that was phenomenal. We got to see the shirts off walk-off. Dom Smith's 3-1 walk-off homer against the Braves in the season finale was his first at-bat since late July. That's number 4. Conforto's walk-off against the Nationals, which I completely forgot was his first career walk-off hit. Also shirts off walk-off. Frazier with a 3-run homer to tie the game against the Nationals, bottom 9. It's now looking like Frazier is definitely not coming back, which, kind of a bummer. Because I'd like to see him get a ring before he sails off into the sun. Rides off into the sun? Sailor ride. And Alonso breaking the rookie home run record was number 1. So I can't really argue with that list. The only one that's kind of like, meh, is Syndergaard's home run against the Reds. It's like, yeah. Duh, Thor is the power. They hit a bomb. I think SNY also doled out grades for the Mets this past season. Pete Alonso got an A+, which absolutely well deserved. Of course, what's his name? Mushnick for the New York Post just like decided to rain on everyone's parade and say like, should we take his rookie home run record seriously? It's like, yes, dude, don't be that guy. Just be happy for Pete Alonso. How can you not be happy for Pete Alonso? How do you feel like you're dead inside if you didn't feel anything for Pete Alonso? The kid was excited to have the record. You could see him getting emotional in the field and even in the post-game interview with Gelbs. Just like, hop on board, dude. Unless you're not a Mets fan, unless you're a Yankees fan, which there are a lot of Yankees fans that are like so rattled by Alonso's home run record and how happy Mets fans are. Like, Yankees, just go win another series against the Twins and leave us alone, dude. Alonso also went on Stephen Colbert. And there was they had a good video where it was Colbert, who does not have great throwing motion, by the way, but throwing like random objects. It was very like David Letterman-esque, where they just drop random objects off the building, but like Colbert's throwing random objects at Alonso, and Alonso's like crushing them in slow motion. I thought that was really cool. But Colbert had the joke where it was like, so you're something about no, I'm gonna butcher it. Not even gonna say it. Look it up. Stephen Colbert, Pete Alonso, great video. Ahmed Rosario got a B plus, which I agree with. You know, his defense improved in the second half and his offense took off, became an impact player. So hopefully that carries over to 2020. Frazier got a C plus. Okay, yeah. I mean, you were expecting more from him. He had a 910 OPS with runners in scoring position. I think that was huge because I think the Mets have struggled with that for so long that it's nice to have someone that can actually do something with some ducks on the pond. Cano got a D plus, which yeah. Yeah. And he's going to continue to get D pluses. I mean, if you think that Robinson Cano is going to improve, I mean, he had his, what was it? Career low in batting average, I think it was this year, 250 something. I mean, that's what he's going to be. He's going to be a 250 something hitter. Maybe he gives you 20 home runs. Maybe he gives you 60 to 70 RBIs. Definitely not worth 20 some odd $1 million a year. And, you know, they interviewed Brody Van Wagenen about this. And they said, explain it. Explain the Cano Diaz trade, dude. What were you thinking? And his response was straightforward. I wanted to win now. I think, you know, people weren't confident in me as a GM because I was not a GM. I was an agent. And so he wanted to come in and he wanted to put his name on this franchise. He wanted to put his stamp on this franchise and on his tenure because he probably thinks, I don't know how long I got. You know, I want to make the most of my limited time here. If it is limited, I'm just going to go and come in guns blazing. And so I'm going to make a big move. And so to him, he thinks, okay, Cano has been the best second baseman in Major League Baseball history. And Diaz was the best closer in the game last year. What's not to like? We had to dish Jay Bruce, who's been kind of meh here and there. Swarzak, who's been meh here and there. And then a couple prospects. And, you know, when asked about one of the prospects, he's like, yeah, the guy's going to be a star in 3 to 4 years. But I wasn't thinking 3 to 4 years. I was thinking 2019. And I get that. But you also mortgaged our future, dude. You've hamstrung us. And maybe if it was just the Cano Diaz trade, it wouldn't be as bad. I'm not as bleak as some other people. But like, I'm more disappointed in the Lowry contract and the Familia contract. Those two contracts, it's like, dude, what are you thinking? Especially with McNeil coming on so strong at the end of 2018. And I know it's like those games didn't matter and we were out of it and blah, blah, blah. But like, Jesus. And now, you know, most of the contracts on the books are with players that are not great. Cespedes, Familia, Cano, Lowry. You know, Wilson Ramos got a, what do you get? A C plus from the SNY. You know, offensively, he's came on. Defensively, he stinks. McNeil got an A plus, obviously. Conforto a B. Conforto's got to be one of the most conflicting players on the Mets roster for sure. Has to be. You have some people calling him the Kevin McReynolds of this team. You have some people saying he's a perennial all-star. People expect him to be an all-star. You know, we'll see. If he continues to play at that pace, great. But if he suffers another injury, slumps, it's rough. Brandon Nimmo got a C plus, which, you know, I feel like you can't penalize a guy for getting injured, especially when it's a neck injury and you can't really play through it. But I'm starting to ease back on the idea that he needs to be our starting center fielder. For sure. I'm starting to, especially since there's been reports that the Mets are interested in a Pirates center fielder Starling Marte. That's a name I could get on board with. So you put him in center, you put Nimmo in left, but then what do you do with JD Davis, dude? Dom Smith got a B, which, yeah, I mean, he made tremendous strides this year, even though he was hurt. You know, defensively, he was a nightmare in left field. I do not want to see him in left at all anymore, ever again. But offensively, he really picked it up. And, you know, just from a clubhouse morale standpoint, he did wonders. So a B seems about right. Juan Lagares got a C. And I got to tell you, I don't know. I would say C minus D plus. I mean, the guy, if you take away that big game he had with the Grand Slam, his first ever Grand Slam and whatnot. Yeah, I guess towards the end of the season, he was playing better, way better, getting on base, scoring runs. Defensively, I don't know that he had any great plays. But C seems a little high. JD Davis, A plus, hell yeah. DeGrom A plus, Wheeler B minus, which I don't agree with. I think he was a B plus. You know, I don't think anyone. Oh, was it a B or B? Oh, a B. So I'd say B plus because, you know, and the write up says that he delivered 15 starts of 7 innings or more with occasional dominance. He was more than occasional dominating, unless I'm misremembering. I'm pretty sure he was putting up DeGrom-esque numbers on more frequently than people remember. I mean, the beginning of the season was kind of ugh. So, do you roll the dice and sign him to 4 years, $23 million a year? I guess not, because of all this arbitration. I didn't really take into consideration how much of that they're saying that I guess $50 million is now going to be put towards players in arbitration, because they do have a lot of players in arbitration: Syndergaard, Stroman, Conforto, a few others. So I didn't really take that into consideration. I didn't think that was going to be that much of a chunk of your budget. So, but you're not going to, yeah. I don't know. Steven Matt's B minus. I think that's too high. I think he's a C plus. I can count on, he had 30 starts, which is great, but I can count on maybe one hand, like good to great games that he had. He's just too inconsistent. So B minus seems high. Marcus Stroman C plus. I think that's too low. C plus seems right. He can be a B plus player, and I think that's what they're hoping for in 2020. Syndergaard gets a C, and I'd say, yeah, it stinks. But again, the guy's only like 26, 27. So, you know, he had his ups and downs. There was some article that someone put out about Garrett Cole. Like, here's an example, a case of someone who has a personal catcher and has worked out great for them. So maybe they could follow that blueprint with Noah. Seth Lugo gets an A. I'd say A plus in my mind. Justin Wilson B plus. Familia F. Diaz F. Callaway D. And BV Dubs D plus. So I'm in agreement with all that. People are asking about Cespedes, and we still don't have any answers. I think he's going to be a trade piece. I think he's had surgery on both heels. He had the ankle. He's 34. His bat's probably still good. It's always going to be good. But his defense is going to be, his defense was starting to fall apart in 2018 anyway. So I think he's going to get traded to an AL team in need of a DH. Which team that is, I don't know. But they got to deal him. They got to trade him. You have too many capable players. You're already defensively not a great ball club. So you got to think about someone who's defensively can at least give you somewhat of a boost. And then obviously, someone who's good with the bat. I know you're probably not going to get a lot for him, and you'll probably get burned for it. And we'll probably see him in like a friggin' Rays uniform at DH crushing balls. And we'll be like, oh, but got to get something for him. Get a bullpen arm, get some depth in the outfield, maybe a couple bullpen arms. I don't know. Diaz was 2-7 with a 5.57 ERA, 26 saves. And, I don't think you give up on him yet. I think he gets an entire off season to kind of detoxify the detox. Just get all the bad blood out of his system, and then he comes back renewed, re-energized. Maybe the ball is different or back to what it was in 2018, and he becomes another dominant guy, gives us 50 plus saves. And that's the difference. With Wheeler probably not coming back, I guess, even though that should be a top priority, is re-signing him in my mind. If he goes, there are three. There was, I forget. I think this Mesmerized online. Yeah, suggested 3 players that could replace Wheeler. One is Wade Miley, which I don't hate. Michael Pineda, which is I don't know, and then Hyunjin Ryu, which I wouldn't mind bringing that guy on board. That'd be nice. He was in talks to be a Cy Young candidate, I believe. 5 lessons the Mets can learn from playoff near miss of 2019. This is another article from SNY, I believe, possibly. Believe in your talent, stay cool, and don't overreact. Obviously, it's kind of tough to do in the New York market, but I think throughout all the nonsense that happened through this year, the fact that they were so resilient and were able to bounce back and still win games and not lose focus, and I mean, that's huge. So I think having that experience is going to be tremendously beneficial for them in 2020. The writer says that they should make bets with minor league deals or journeyman or out of favor arms. Do we need to make bets, dude? I don't know. I mean, at this point, yeah, I mean, your bullpen is in such shambles that you got to make some bets, I guess. Just hopefully something pays off. Brad Bratch might be an example of that. So that was an interesting thing. There's a $5 million team option, which the Mets probably should decline. But then there's a $1.38 million player option, which Brad could possibly pick up. And since he is a Mets guy, people seem to think that the player option will get picked up, which that would be nice. And of course, Joe Panic is also a Mets guy, so he might also stay on just to get a ring, dude, which I'm not mad at you for that. Ignore the chaos, which kind of ties in with the lesson 1, is just ignore the chaos, believe in yourself. And then the 4th one, they need to play slightly better against NL teams, especially playing them on the road. Yeah, pretty much. It's so weird because for so long they did play well on the road and then they stunk at home. And that was what cost them, postseason runs or postseason berths in the past. And now it's flipped. But I think this last lesson is the one is so key. Don't just hope the status quo will mature into a championship. So let's not rest on the laurels of this season. Even though we didn't make the playoffs, I think a lot of people would view this season not so much as a disappointment. I think there were some people who thought we would get 90 wins, and we probably should have got 90 wins. So in that respect, yeah, it's somewhat disappointing. But at the same time, there's a lot of hope for the future. But don't think that this current roster that you have in place is going to win 90 next year. Tweak it just a little bit here and there to ensure, and you're basically buying insurance, okay? Your current roster can get you wins, yes. But you got to buy insurance to plug the little leaks in the dam. And if you do that and you be smart about it, you don't make some stupid big signing. And I think this is what the writer was saying, make bets here and there with players that could work out, that fell out of favor somewhere else and need to change a location, change your scenery. Okay, I get that. And maybe, you don't make the huge splashes, but you do make the nice, smart, small ball moves, money ball moves for areas in which you're lacking. Just put the Band-Aids on the right bruises or scrapes and wounds, and you're in a good spot. Just don't do anything. I mean, you got to do something in the manager spot. Obviously, bring in Girardi. That'd be a great start. And then Girardi must have his guys that he's familiar with or comfortable with, that he can work with Brody and Wilpon and say, I know this guy. I wanted him with the Yankees, couldn't get him. I think we get him the Mets because XYZ. Boom. and then watch the winds roll in, baby. All right, let's talk Giants. Major disappointment in week 5 against the Minnesota Vikings. I thought they honestly had a chance to come away with and steal away a victory, a win. Minnesota was dysfunctional. They were all over the place. We talked about it last week. Kirk Cousins is having to apologize to his receiver on a podcast. That, when you have stuff going on like that, Stephon Diggs is trying to request a trade to the Patriots or something to that effect. I don't know. When you have that going on, you had to know in the back of your mind that it was going to go the complete opposite way. As soon as you think, oh, we got them right where we want them, Minnesota is a bundle of discombobulation. They can't get it together. They come out and stick it to the Giants. And of course, it didn't help that Wayne Gallman left the game in the first quarter with a concussion. You're now left with John Hillman and Elijah Penny. John Hillman didn't really do much on the ground. He got stuffed a lot. I thought that they didn't turn to Elijah Penny as quick as they should have. The guy has got some moves. He's not your typical just fullback. It seems like he can definitely push the pile. We know that. So kind of saying that the Giants were one-dimensional at that point, I think that's wrong. I think that Shermer thought that they had to be one-dimensional. But, Elijah Penny, to me, seems like he can carry the load. He seems like a guy you can hand the ball 15, 20 times. And if he averages 3 yards a gain, so be it. I'd rather explore that and keep your defense honest, keep your backers honest, keep your secondary honest, than have them just drop straight back into coverage and blitz the piss out of us. So I disagree that we were one-dimensional. I think that they showed some promise on the ground in the fourth quarter, later in the third quarter with Eli Penny, and they just kind of gave up on it. You have like 3rd and 2, 4th and 2 with Elijah Penny, who's a big ass dude. 3rd and 2, if you know you're going for it on 4th, you might as well just try and ram it down their throats. Just say, okay, let's put Rhett Ellison in the backfield as a fullback, as whatever, an H-back, and just all systems go straight ahead. But Shermer thought differently. I thought his play calling was suspect. We came out firing. Jones misses Shepard on the deep bomb. And it's so that's so typical of Giants games or most games in the NFL. You have that big deep shot to right at the beginning of the game, and if you hit it, you're off and running. You're gonna win the game. It's crazy to think that, but I think the statistics will back it up. You hit that ball, like if the Redskins hit that deep ball that Case Keenum threw in the first play of the game last week, I think the Redskins have a good shot at winning. And he missed another throw last week that could have been a touchdown. Same thing happened to the Giants this week. Jones had Shep wide open, just missed him. He had pressure in his face. He was getting hit. So it's like, how accurate can you be? But that's a missed opportunity. He misses Shepard driving down, I think in the third quarter. He throws high and Shepard comes down with it, but he's out of bounds. It's like, did he need to throw it that high? I don't know. Golden Tate's first catch. I just saw this yesterday. Golden Tate's first catch as a New York Giant. He decides to cut it back to the inside on that little bubble screen, the wide receiver screen, where he's in the slot, and they have Latimer and Shepard outside of him. And Shep and Latimer have their blocks. They got their men locked up, and Tate just takes it back inside, right to into the teeth of the defense. So if he goes outside, he's got plenty of room to run, and maybe it's not a touchdown, but it's a big gain, and maybe things pan out differently. Tate was upset with his chances on Sunday, and, I don't blame him. Why did you sign me? You signed me for 2-3 years, $10 million a year. And if I'm not your number one and I'm still your number two, you're still not throwing me the ball as much as a number two. So, and now he's going to get his chance on Thursday, tomorrow. I'm now recording this on Wednesday, and he's going to get his chances. And I said this on Sunday. At this point, Shepard was concussed for sure. I mean, that long pass down the left sideline where he comes up with his head on sideways. I mean, he's concussed. Like, that's the look of a man who's concussed. How he got back in the game, I don't know. What kind of tests are they conducting on the sideline in that friggin' tent? Shouldn't have been allowed back in the game, and you can see it because Jones throws in the fourth quarter, throws a pass, deep ball. I think it's a fourth down play to Shep in the end zone, drops it. And I have a feeling if he wasn't concussed, maybe he comes down with that. Maybe he runs the route differently. Maybe someone else is in that position. Maybe it's Slayton running that route. Maybe it's someone else, Tate, who has the wherewithal to come down with the ball. But Tate's going to get his chances on Thursday, man. Oh, boy. Evan Ingram might have a sprained MCL. I had a sprained MCL senior year, before my senior year in high school. I was finally the starting quarterback of the high school team. Something I had been working for so long and hoping for since I was a kid. I'm finally going to be the starting quarterback of the high school football team, varsity level. And I drop back to pass in a preseason game. I have a shallow crossing route from a running back, and I throw it. And as soon as I step and throw, a guy dives right at my left leg, right, my planting leg, and I thought I tore everything. You know, I was wailing in pain, and I had like a female trainer tell me to stop being a pussy. I was like, okay, all right. I think my season's over, and you're telling me I'm being a P word. So turns out I just had a sprained MCL, and I was out 1 to 2 weeks. I think I was able to come back for the season opener. I had to wear a brace, but intense rehab. Sprained MCL is not as bad as it seems. I don't think. I still think they should be careful with him. To run him out on Thursday night against the Patriots, what is the point there? What is the point? So he can get hurt even worse? I just think, at this point, sit Saquon, sit Ingram, take our lumps, try and cover the spread. It's 16.5, I think, at this point. Let's just go in there, play our best, take our lumps, and come out and get rested for Arizona. Because that's a game that we can win and we should win if we play the way we can with a healthy roster. To throw Saquon out there and Ingram and to risk further injury to those guys when they're already pretty banged up, for what? To barely, I'm a big Giants fan, diehard Giants fan for 30 plus years, 35 years, 30 plus years. I don't see the reason or logic in running out guys that are hampered by injuries. Put up guys with fresh legs, see what they can do. Don't hold back in this game. Don't play soft. Don't play soft zone. Just be as physical and aggressive as possible with as many healthy bodies as possible. Don't run people out there that are hurt or have risk injury. We're going to lose. I mean, that's a given. We could have won this Minnesota game. That's what's so crazy. Everyone looks at the final score, the box score, and they say, Giants are trash. The Giants got blown out. If you watch the game and if you pay attention to the little statistics here and there, 6 Giants offensive series ended in Minnesota territory. 6. Now, I understand the Vikings helped us out a lot. They gave us a lot of first downs on penalties, but that's, neither here nor there. Minnesota needs to be better. If Minnesota doesn't commit that penalty, do we have a touchdown instead of the ball at the 5 or the 10 on that Golden Tate out and up? If Xavier Rhodes doesn't get in the way, is that a touchdown to Golden Tate? I don't think we ended up scoring on that drive. So, the penalties can hurt you, but they can also help you to a certain degree. 3 drives went into double-digit plays, and we came away with 3 points. That's got to be a record. I don't know many teams, offenses that are going 10-plus plays and not getting any points. I mean, that happened on Sunday. So the fact that the offense, as decimated as they were, no Gallman, no Saquon, Shep is kind of in and out for the third, fourth quarter. The fact that they were able to put together these drives and almost score it's just if a throw goes right here, if they don't get a penalty here, it's just the little things. We're looking at possibly a tie ball game going into overtime. And who knows what happens down in 2 minutes with that defense, because they probably would have given up the game-winning field goal or touchdown. But the point is, we competed with the Vikings when we didn't have our best player on the field, Saquon Barkley. And, I was disappointed, obviously, but I'm still emboldened, if that's a word, by their performance. The fact that they were able to stick with the Vikings. Vikings have one of the best defenses in the league. Top 5. No joke. I mean, they're facing the Patriots this week, and the Patriots are just like having the number 1 defense in the league. So I'm not expecting anything this week, but the fact that they were able to move the ball, get first downs, they were 8 of 16 on third down. Yeah, they're getting to a lot of third downs, which is not great, 16 opportunities, but they're converting 8 of 16. I mean, that's pretty impressive. How many times on third down, if Eli were the quarterback, and I love Eli, would that have been take a sack, crumble to the ground, throw it away, throw it short? Instead, you have Jones wiggling away, picking up the first down with his legs. So there's hope. I have not lost hope. And I don't think that we should necessarily tank the rest of the season. But, that was a performance that made me think we're not as far off as people think we are. People think we're trash. We're, going to go 5-10, 5-11, 6-10, which we still might, but but it's a different 5-11, different 6-10 than we've seen in the past. This feels like a team that could very well be 8-8, 9-7 at the end of the season. I could very easily see that. And if things go their way, other teams fall by the wayside. I think the Packers, the Seahawks, and the Vikings have 3 of the toughest schedules down the stretch. They're going to have to fight. The Giants don't necessarily have one of the easiest schedules, but they don't have one of the toughest schedules. So just hang around, Maybe you get in at 9-7. I don't know. All I know is I'm sick of Pat Shurmur. His press conferences. Now, I know there are people out there saying dude, why do you even care about press conferences? And I'm kind of on board with that. I'm all for skipping press conferences, because if Bill Belichick has proven anything, is that he doesn't give you dick during press conferences, and he's the greatest football coach of all time. So in my mind, don't pay attention to what Shurmur says in the post conference, but then you end up clicking on the video and you watch and you're like, how can you give that answer? It's infuriating to watch. And I'm starting to try and coach myself. Don't take anything he says seriously. I mean, Jabril Peppers tomahawk chops the ball out of Dalvin Cook's hand, saves a touchdown, saves us 6 points. We have our ball on our own 1 yard line. They have 10 motherfuckers in the box. Okay. Stacked. And you hand it off to John Hillman, who gets crushed in the end zone, two yards deep in the end zone. And Hillman was interviewed and he was like, I just want to make sure I held on to the ball. He knew he was getting, he's like, I'd rather give up 2 than 6. And it's like, he knew that he was going to get tackled for a safety. Now, is that on Shurmur or is that on Daniel Jones? If Eli Manning is the quarterback, does he see 10 in the box and say, check, check, check? We got to get out of this play because it's going for a safety. And that's where the rookie mistakes come into play. Does Daniel Jones have the ability to check, the option to check? If he doesn't, it's on Shurmur. If he does, it's on Jones. And Shurmur didn't want to throw him under the bus because Jones is Shurmur's boy. So I could see that. But God damn it, Shurmur. Yeah, run the ball in the 1, dude. When you know that Daniel Jones has been pretty goddamn effective on the boot. Play fake to Hillman, roll him out to his right, or maybe even roll him out to his left. And either give him the option to run the ball, get you 4 or 5 yards, 7 yards down the field by scrambling, or you get a pass and you get a first down. Instead, we're going to hand it off to Hillman on a very obvious run play and get a safety. And that ultimately was one of two things that sealed their fate. Okay. The safety, because then the Vikings get the ball back, they drive down, and I think they get a field goal. And now it's 18-10, something like that. So you're not completely out of it, 18-10. The second play is DeAndre Baker getting the unsportsmanlike conduct on Dalvin Cook on a third down when they stop them, extends the drive, and they end up scoring a touchdown. And that kind of, 15 points that really kind of put it out of reach for the Giants. So, and it's right after I praised DeAndre Baker, like, wow, he's really, stepping it up and shutting down. And he's been such a turnaround story, pulling a complete 180 from getting toasted repeatedly in the first 2 weeks to shutting down Godwin from the Bucs for a little bit. And then, the Redskins receivers, I mean, what can I say there? But Stephon Diggs only had like 2 or 3 catches, but then you see him try and tackle. He doesn't have containment. He doesn't call out when Thielen is crossing. Is he saying cross when Thielen is coming across the field wide the fuck open? So, I mean, it's rookie mistakes, rookie errors. And so that's kind of the bright silver lining of all this, is that these rookies with this experience, this is the bad side of the rookies. We've seen the upside. Here's the downside. They don't have the experience to identify situations and call it out and adjust, audible, what have you. But maybe it only takes a year or half a year for these rookies to come around. So I still think Jones played okay. He played all right. He wasn't a disaster. He still made, he had one interception. He could have had maybe 1 or 2 more based off of like tipped balls, which is not really on him. He had Ingram, completion to Ingram that was dropped because Ingram got hit. A couple of other drops. So, I think Jones is fine. I am somewhat concerned about the amount of hits he's taking. Nate Solder is just like, what is a turnstile at left tackle? I mean, this guy at the time was the highest paid left tackle in NFL history, and he has not played to that. Is he better than Eric Flowers? Hell yeah, bro. I think we all know that. But at the same time, it's like, he's not exactly Andrew Whitworth, who was available for us a couple of years ago, and we didn't go after because he was too old. So I don't know what you do with Solder. I mean, I think you do give him help. I think why don't you line up Rhett Ellison next to him and have Rhett Ellison just chip every single down, chip the defensive end, chip the defensive end, chip the defensive end. I don't care if it minimizes your playbook. I do not care. Because your playbook doesn't matter if your quarterback's on his ass. So give, and if it's not Rhett Ellison, maybe Elijah Penny, fullback. Have him motion out, chip. I mean, you got to just, whatever's happening on Soldier's side, he's obviously a little banged up. I think he's got either a neck issue or something, so he's not 100%. He's been, limited practice here and there. Chip, you got to give him support. You got to give him help. You can't just leave him out on an island and expect things to turn out all right, because then you end up with Daniel Jones getting hurt and it's like we're back to Eli. So I don't know. I'm very, very conflicted about this defense. I'm very conflicted because I see such good things from guys like Dexter Lawrence. He's the 4th highest graded rookie and ranks 13th among the interior defensive linemen. Second in pressure rate, trailing on Calais Campbell, who's an all-pro, Pro Bowler. He had a sack, a forced fumble, a quarterback hit, and 5 tackles on Sunday. Would have had a second sack if Janoris Jenkins didn't have an illegal contact penalty. I mean, Dexter Lawrence is, and people question that pick at 17, and he's coming up big time. It's still not enough. I saw BJ Hill getting some props, for his ability to pressure the quarterback and to beat his assignment. So it seems like your front 3, Tomlinson, Hill, Lawrence with McIntosh, who got his first sack, rotating in. It seems like that defensive front seems okay. Your linebackers are a mess. It's just a soup. It's Swiss cheese soup. It's just like, and I understand David Mayo, was cut from the Niners, but I had high hopes for him since he was Luke Kuechly's backup in Carolina. I thought, okay, well, Luke Kuechly is an all-pro, so obviously he's not going to start over him, but at least he's got the chops. He's learning from the best. And he was just looked like lost. Nate Stupar, who was, cut and is like a special teams guy, is your other starting linebacker, which I didn't understand. And you just saw him getting lost and trailing, and, he didn't make any plays. Josiah Tuoefa, why are you not giving this guy more playing time? I know he's an undrafted free agent, but he obviously performed in the preseason. I'd rather see him on the field than Nate Stupar. No offense to Nate Stupar. Going back to DeAndre Baker, he allowed just 5 completions for 35 yards in the last 2 weeks before the Vikings game. But, and for everyone saying that he got toasted and torched on that play by the touchdown to Thielen. Nah, dude. Thielen ran a decent route. I know that the broadcast, what was his name? Charles Davis. Ugh, that broadcasting team stunk out loud. I know Charles Davis was all up, hanging off of Thielen's nuts for that route, but Baker lost his footing. Baker was with him step for step, but lost his footing. If he just maintains his footing and is able to go up against Thielen, that's not a touchdown. So, Janoris Jenkins, I mean, illegal contact penalty. I mean, cannot tackle worth a damn. If the one play, I think Thielen went for a big gain. He had a crossing route and then cut it back across the field. And it's like Jenkins kind of missed that tackle. And if David Mayo isn't there, Thielen's gone for another touchdown. I think they got to, there was an article from like NFL.com that said that Janoris Jenkins is their trade piece this year. He's got 1 year left on his contract in 2020. It's another monster year, another monster money. And it's like, 2016, I would have said, yeah, he's worth it. 2017, I was like, no, he's not worth it. 2018 was like, I don't know. 2019 is like, nah, I don't think he's worth it. And I don't think he's going to get any better in 2020. So you trade him, but it's kind of like that. To me, when you trade him, the trade deadline's in November, I believe. So they have a couple weeks. And people are saying like, well, if they lose, they're going to lose the Patriots. So they'll be 2-4. Maybe if they lose, by week 8, if they beat if they only win one of the next 3 or something like that, if they go 3-5, I think you got to trade them. And then just, we're going to see what we got with Julian Love and Corey Ballantyne, which it is, I'm flabbergasted that they have not played Julian Love and Corey Ballantyne after all the talk in the offseason. Rookie minicamp, OTAs, all that bullshit. All we heard was how impressed everyone was with Julian Love and Corey Ballantyne. And we haven't seen them for any amount of time on the field on defense. Now, Ballantyne had an amazing kickoff return that put us in great position that led to a touchdown. So he's doing a phenomenal job returning the ball on kickoffs. I wouldn't say phenomenal because like he, coming out when you're 10 yards deep and getting tackled at the 15, not helping us. But he has the potential to take it to the house, which is great. Just put him in. I mean, and I would say you're going to lose this Patriots game. Treat it like a preseason game. Stick Love and Ballantyne out there and say, have at it, Hoss. Let's see what you got against Edelman and Gordon and Dorsett, although I don't know what Dorsett's playing. You got to start seeing what you have because like Grant Haley was an undrafted free agent. He's repeatedly getting torched. He got torched by Redskins receivers. He's getting torched by Thielen. He did have a great tackle near the goal line on Dalvin Cook that saved the touchdown and forced the Vikings to kick a field goal. So, I mean, he has his moments, but at the same time, it's like you drafted Love and Valentine. There's all this weird hype around them, but that we haven't seen them at all. It's just like, are they just not picking up the playbook at all? We're now like 6 weeks into the season. Let's go. Preseason media hype. Oh, it's the worst. Speaking of Nate Solder, he had a 70% pass block win rate, which was the third worst of any offensive lineman on Sunday. Yikes. Giants missed 16 tackles on Sunday, most in the NFL. Daniel Jones was pressured on 44% of his dropbacks after he took over as starting quarterback, which is the highest rate in the NFL. Yeah, so I mean, the offensive line, specifically Nate Solder, needs to get better. Chip away. I'm telling you, got to give him support, got to give him help, because teams are just going to attack him relentlessly, knowing that he cannot go one-on-one with anyone. Get creative, Shermer. Jesus, you're supposed to be the offensive guru. Figure it out. So I know this is mostly depressing, but this is kind of nice, little in your face. Baker Mayfield, 56% completion rate, 249 yards per game, 4 touchdowns, 8 picks. Daniel Jones, 64% completion rate, 253 yards per game, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. In your face, Baker. Baker had a shit-tastic game against the Niners on Monday night. He looked like me in high school. 8 of 22, 100 yards. I think he had a fumble and a pick maybe. And Odell Beckham Jr. I said that the Giants are currently under the curse of OBJ, which I still believe to be true. But look at his numbers with the Browns. 23 catches, 335 yards, and 1 touchdown. He had something like 39 catches and I think maybe 400 yards receiving and more than a touchdown with Eli as his quarterback last year. So for all that hype and talk about how he's in a better place and he has a quarterback that gets him now, gets him and can make the throws. Not really panning out so far. That being said, they played some tough teams, some really tough teams, some tough defenses. And their schedule gets significantly easier heading down the stretch. So, and that division stinks, the AFC North. I mean, the Ravens, we don't know what they are. The Steelers don't, they're on their third quarterback. And then you have the Bengals, So I think the Browns win that division at 9-7 probably. But Evan Engram has 33 catches, 373 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's a tight end. So, and then, there was a lot of talk about Oshane Ximines. He's the Giants' most productive pass rusher per snap and the NFL's 3rd best rookie rusher. So, listen, there's some good, there's some bad. All right. We're not going to just forget about this Patriots game. I'm actually going into Hoboken to visit a buddy's place. He's a Pats fan. I fully expect us to get blown completely out of the water. But it almost reminds me of, 2017 or 18? It might have been 2017, where we went into Denver and we didn't have anybody. Literally nobody. That was the year all our receivers got wiped off the face of the planet. And we had Orleans Darkwa and Evan Engram. And we won that game. We went into Denver and we won. A place that we'd never win. And we won with a very depleted roster. Now, the Pats are not the Broncos. I understand that. So I'm definitely taking the spread. I'm going to tease the spread a little bit. 16.5. I'm like, all right, give me 23.5. I think we can beat that. But yeah, I said in my blog post recapping this game and previewing the Pats game, that let's just go all out. And this was back when I thought Saquon had a chance, and I thought I didn't know about Ingram's knee, and, Shepard, I didn't know that he was going to be out. I thought, okay, let's give it our all. Let's throw everything at the wall. And I think we should still do that. I think you line John Hillman can spell Eli Penny. I really like Eli Penny. I think you put him back there. You have Rhett Ellison as your H-back. You have Evan Engram. Or sorry, you don't have Evan Engram. But you have Darius Slayton and you have Golden Tate. Those are two legitimate receivers. Golden Tate can get his head out of his ass, then all power to you. Even better. He doesn't have to worry about Shep or there's no confusion and redundancies. Tate, you're a guy in the slot. Slayton, you're a guy on the outside. You are a deep threat. Rhett Ellison, you are a blocking tight end, and occasionally you slip out for a nice 5-yard gain on a play action boot. Eli Penny is the guy. Hand him the ball 20 times, just for shits and gigs. I don't care what the score is. Hand him the ball 20 times. Hell, almost 25 times. Hand him the ball. I don't care what it looks like. I honestly don't care, because I believe in Eli Penny. I think he's going to get you 3 yards a gain. And if that means we throw quick hitch to Tate, he gets 5, maybe he shakes loose, gets 7. 3 yards is a first down from Eli Penny. There was a stat, I think, on 2nd and long. The Giants are among the worst, second or third worst team on 2nd and long. They just, we don't pass the ball when there's a higher win rate. The little things that Shermer's got to clean up. His play calling, I'm not crazy about. It's like we're attacking, and then you're going to do an end around in the red zone. I don't see end arounds doing that well, especially when they know we have a running back situation. We're depleted at running back. Penny is a big dude. He can move the pile. He can move the sticks if you give him the ball and trust in him. And he doesn't feel like a fullback. He just feels almost like a Brandon Jacobs-esque type player. Not the same size, but bigger than your average running back, and not as slow, quote unquote, as a typical fullback. Give him the ball. Give us a chance to win. Slayton, Tate, Penny, and hopefully Ellison has a breakout game. Don't put Saquon out there to hurt himself. Don't put Evan Engram out there to hurt himself. Shepard is the future Sterling Shepard. This is a tough one, folks. This is going to be a tough one to swallow. It feels like he's going down the road of David Wilson, promising young talent who just, or Ike Hilliard even, someone who just had a really bad injury that's just going to completely impact the rest of their career. Too many concussions, dude. Too many concussions. I don't know if he needs to get a new helmet or he needs to rethink. He's an all balls out player, which I love about him. Willing to dive and put his body on the line to make plays. But, maybe you need to rein it in a bit, because you're no help to us on the sideline. So, yeah, that's tough, because now we got to start thinking about the future. It's okay, Tate is going to be 30 plus years old. It looks like he's probably past his prime. We have Slayton, which is nice, but then you have Shepard, who's concussed. I think they got to go draft a receiver. I'm a big advocate of trying to move up to draft the best offensive lineman possible. Obviously, Solder's in the twilight of his career. Remmers is a stopgap. Mike Remmers is a stopgap at right tackle. Zeitler is good, is solid. Hernandez is solid. Jalapeno is solid at center. So it's you got to start thinking about moving up to draft high tackles in the first round. But you also got to look at, and they got Slayton in the 5th round, I think, or something like that. So there's talent to be found in the later rounds. So it's just, let's not ignore the wide receiving position at all. And if you clear Jenkins off the docket, off your records, off their books, I assume we'll probably have to take on some of that, but it's better than having all of it and having a guy who's kind of like half-assing it out there. But if you're James Betcher, so offensively, we got to look to the future. We got to draft a running back. A wide receiver for sure, and offensive line and wide receiver. Defense, I mean, just keep drafting linebackers. Just keep like a safety and a linebacker, a couple linebackers. And it's mind blowing to me that they haven't been doing this. Linebackers. You know, and O'Shane, and this is what is so perplexing to me. O'Shane is Jimenez, leading pass rusher as a rookie. Lorenzo Carter keeps getting this praise as if he's about to take the next step. We haven't really seen it yet, but he's shown flashes. And then you have that front, Hill, Tomlinson, Lawrence, McIntosh. So you have your front, the outside linebackers and your defensive linemen are coming around. It's just you need the two inside backers. So Tay Davis is going to be back. I mean, I don't know. He was supposed to be great in coverage. I haven't seen much, that much out of him in coverage yet, but maybe he turns around against New England because he's going to have to. They're going to throw running backs out into passing. James White, I don't think Rex Burkhead's playing, but Sony Michel, like these are guys that are going to run patterns. So you're going to have to cover them. And I don't even know if Alec Ogletree is going to be back. It would be huge if he is, but it's a hamstring. And that takes, it probably takes 4 weeks if we're being real, because if he comes back tonight or Thursday and he just tears it or whatever, pulls it again, it's like he's out for another even longer amount of time. So maybe just sit him again. So David Mayo, Josiah Toefa, and Tay Davis. So I think they just need to go out and draft linebackers, maybe even sign an inside linebacker to a big contract. 26-year-old guy, which they thought they were getting that with Ogletree, and it just hasn't really panned out. I mean, he had a great game against the Bucs before he left. He was graded like 90 plus. So I think he was maybe starting to turn the corner and starting to come around, but I think they expected more of him. I'm not completely disappointed in him, but we need like a Gary Reasons. Yeah. Pepper Johnson. Yeah. What happened to those guys, man? All right. So that's the episode. That's it. That's the show. That's Giant Mess. You can reach me at Real Cinch on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. Call the hotline, leave a voicemail, 862-BIT-1986. That's 862-BIT-1986. I'll leave you with this. The frickin' Devils, dude. Oh, Devils. Such high hopes. And then they come out, they get a commanding 4-0 lead over the Jets in the opener. Blake Coleman has like an all-time goal, falling down, and like as he's falling down, flicks it past the goalie on his glove side. And then they blow the lead and lose in an overtime loss shootout. Like this has been going on for years. I want to say 5 or 6 years. It seems like the same story over and over. Overtime loss. And then they got blown, their doors blown off by the Sabres, I think 7-2 or something like that. So, Schneider's had to leave the game, and I guess he had cramps or something. And then Mackenzie Blackwood has not been what he was last year. So we'll see. It's way too early to count them out, but not a hot start for the Devils. All right. That's this episode. Reach out. Let me know. Touch someone, touch something, touch me. No. Just reach out and let me know what you think of the show and what I can do to improve, because I love and I crave feedback. All right. That's it for this show. Adios, muchachos.